Welcome to Birmingham. Welcome to the first of its kind property showcase, where we have brought the industry to new markets. I think the idea, or why I've been asked to sort of just speak briefly about why we put this together, why we're here, is that we have discovered over the last few years, 18 months, couple of years, that the diaspora market has become the biggest investment traffic that we get in a lot of our developments in Zimbabwe. And as an ex-diaspora myself, I thought by joining CIF, who kindly provided a vehicle for us to sort of operate from, thought it would be a very good idea to bring the industry to you, to try and demystify all those horror stories we've heard over the years of just bad business practices and bad deals that have happened over the last decades in real estate in Zimbabwe. So I'm hoping this afternoon you're going to get some fantastic insights from industry leaders. What we have is the whole customer journey, essentially, of speakers. So we've got estate agents, we've got banks and lenders, we've got developers speaking, we've got legal, and suppliers as well, future solar. All that, that will hopefully give you an idea of what actually is happening on the ground and why it's important to really considering in the future and participating in the future of the country. So enjoy. Exhibition continues, it's all day. So after the speakers and the panel discussion, hopefully you can go back into the exhibition hall with a different outlook on how you want to actually invest in Zimbabwe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, so firstly, we are going to have the panel come and take their seats shortly, but it would be wrong for us to kick that off without actually hearing from the CIF MD and licensee estate agent herself, Patience Batonga Moyo, who's going to come up and share again a little bit of what's been going on the ground and just paint a picture of the real estate in our region. So Patience, if you could kindly come up and share a few words.
Good morning, everyone. I think I've already been introduced. So, as Patience, my French teacher called me very well. He called me Patience. So, I loved it. I fell in love with it. So, feel free to call me Patience. So, we're just trying to sort ourselves out here. But we are really excited as if to be leading this this event, and we are looking forward to many more events like this. Like my colleague Mike mentioned, we realize that there's thirst for information and the media doesn't always paint the correct picture of what is happening in Zimbabwe. So we've come with the picture, the correct position of what is happening. So there are a lot of things that are happening. I think for those that have come quite recently, you've seen a lot of changes. You know, when you see a lot of infrastructure being put in place, it means that there has been the demand, and government is now being put in a position where they have to put in the infrastructure to cater for everybody. So no, we are really excited, and we have brought a lot of exciting products for you. So my presentation today is not going to, I'm not a fundi. It's going to be very basic, it's going to be very informative. I've just decided to bring the questions, to respond to the questions that people normally ask, because people want to know what's happening. If I invest in this, do I get a return? So that's what I'm going to be basically talking about. So CIF, who are CIF? So CIF, we are Zimbabwe's leading real estate agency, and Southern Africa. We're leading in Zimbabwe and in Southern Africa. We've got representation in 11 countries, and we've just recently launched the United Arab Emirates. So if any of you are also interested in investing in Dubai, you can always come and see us. Our purpose as SIF is to empower people to prosper through property. So you find you may have your house that you don't know what to do with it. When you come, we have conversations around how it can be of maximum benefit to you, to empower people to prosper through property. Our services are property valuations, property sales and auctioneering, management and letting, which is a very specialist. We're actually big on property management, and our biggest clients are the diaspora. So we ensure that the money gets to where it is supposed to get. If you want to pay fees, we ensure that the fees is paid for the kids. If you want us to look after your mom, your grand, to renovate, that is what we do. We've now just recently launched our property development department, so we do have quite a lot of developments. One thing that we've realized is, in fact, the last 18 months, we were here 2 years ago, just on a fact-finding mission to find out what it is that you wanted. And a lot of people told us that they wanted products that are flexible in terms of payment terms. So those are the products that we went and created. So we do have quite a lot of interesting developments. I will just run through a few of them, but if you go through to the exhibitions hall, you will see most of the developers and the developments that we're doing. We also offer advisory services. So if you need any property advice, please come to us. We give that advice, because it's not everybody that is supposed to sell their property to raise money, and it's not everybody that that is supposed to rent. We make solutions, so we give that property advice. We are based in Harare. We've got 3 offices in Harare. We've got a commercial hub as well that concentrate on just the commercial bit, and we've got an office in Bulawayo. We've just opened the Bulawayo office because of the need that has been there. Why are we here? Mike has touched on the reason why we are here. We are here to give you the information that you want. To show you that we are serious about what we mean, because if we were back home, it would not show our seriousness, but we really mean business, and we really want to engage, and we really want to work with you. The property, Zimbabwe's property market is mainly consistent of residential, commercial, industrial, and the land. And just an overview, the real estate of Zimbabwe is witnessing changes. There's a lot of changes that are happening. I think we have a lot of developments. The cyber city, I think Ken is going to talk about the development. So the landscape in Zimbabwe has totally changed. The commercial space is also experiencing a lot of changes, where the old structures are now being renovated. So there's a lot of opportunities that are there. The retail sector continues to grow. This one is where most of the money that is there. We've got demand for office space in the CBD, and demand for industrial space as well is quite high. Residential space, we've got a lot of people moving from the rural areas, all wanting to move into urban. So there is demand for residential space, which are opportunities where if you were to invest in, you can also make your money from the rentals that are currently being charged in US dollar. So the increase in demand for property in Zimbabwe is quite high. So it may not necessarily be for you here, but for the people that are there. So you can invest in that and also make a return on those money, on the rentals that you have received. The state of the Zimbabwean economy, I'm not going to talk about that. We've got our expert from CBZ, the CEO from CBZ, Mr. Nyazema. He's going to touch on the state of the Zimbabwean economy. The rental prices currently are being charged in US dollar, although we now do have the ZiG currency, but you do understand that when you're charging rentals, it's as what you agree on. So as brokers, if a client insists that they want to collect US dollar, that's what we try and negotiate for them. But most of them are currently being received in US dollars, and the ZiG is being accepted where a landlord is willing to accept. The commercial space, I've just done a list there where we see the office space in red, the retail in green. So retail is performing quite high. So if you want to invest in retail, these are your tuck shops. I think you've seen the lot of tuck shops that are happening, the office space, the shops that you see, the front line. That's what we mean when we talk about retail. You also mean your OKs, those are the shops. They're fetching an excellent return. So that's an opportunity that is there as well. The reason why I'm talking about it is when we're talking about our developments, we also have these spaces, land for the retail space available. So you can also look at investing in those ones. The retail sector is has maintained a positive growth with rentals being charged at an average of about $28 per square meter. And the office space in the CBD is quite declining. I think we all know the challenges with our CBD. It's now due for redevelopment. So everybody's moving out of the CBD. Rentals for the industrial has remained steady. And in terms of the office market space, a lot of people are preferring to use the suburban office space. These are your areas around closer to the CBDs. But now you find people are opening offices anywhere. I think because we now can work from, we now can work remotely. It's easy to work from anywhere. But the demand for office space, for the suburban office space, is quite high, and the rentals for suburban office space are ranging from about $8 to $15 per square meter. CBD is $5 to $10 per square meter. CBD has declined because no one wants to be there because of parking issues. I think we do have quite a lot of issues. And then also office space, CBD is $5 to $10, and then the grade A, this is the top notch, $7 to $12 per square meter. So it's still quite less compared to the suburban. The retail market, that one is very high. So for the retail, these are your tuck shops, your small shops, they're fetching around about $15 to $20 per square meter. So you find that the retail office space is not generally just in the CBD. You've got for those that grew up in the ghetto, you've got your Gazaland, you've got your shopping center. People are creating, those smaller units where you have a lot of businesses happening. These are the rentals that are being achieved with the $15 to $20 per square meter. So for those ones, you're getting an average yield of about 6 to 7%. Industrial space is, there's been a demand for industrial space. I think Zimbabwe is now pushing for, everyone is moving into Zimbabwe, so the demand has actually gone quite high, and rentals for the industrial space in the last couple of years were 50 cents per square meter, but now they've pushed to about $5 to $9 per square meter. This is just showing how the demand has gone up. Okay. Rentals in the residential space, the northern suburbs, everybody wants to own a property in the northern suburbs. These are the rentals, $1,000 to $4,000 for a modern 3-bedroom, 3 to 5 bed apartment. The eastern suburbs are fetching about $600 to $2,000 depending on the type of property. And then the southern suburbs, we're looking at about $450 to about $1,000 as well. It depends on how you put in your investment. And the western suburbs are looking at about $500 to $1,500. I think I'll touch more on that when I give you the real examples. Why real estate? Real estate maintains value. When we talk about investing in real estate, it's the only investment that maintains value. And in fact, it increases value. And it has a high tangible asset value. You have control over investment, and in terms of inflation, it hedges inflation. So that's why we talk of investing in real estate. The opportunities that are there, we've got the densification opportunities. There has been a lot of, in fact, Zimbabwe's population continues to grow, and the local authorities are now asking if we could densify. So you'd find that your ordinary Vinona, I think Vinona has quite big stands. Your 5,000 square meters in Vinona, you are now allowed to put up cluster units to accommodate everybody else. So this is another opportunity that is there. I'll just show the examples, examples in a bit. But that's an opportunity for cluster developments. A 4-bedroom house with 2,230 square meter floor area in Grindle North on a 4,500 square meter plot would cost you about $390,000. And the same 4,500 square meter space would accommodate 9 cluster houses, each with 250 square meters floor area and a potential selling price of $230,000 each. So you'd find that you can have one vacant with an opportunity to give you this. But the challenge that we've had as Zimbabweans, that I know, well, not as Zimbabweans, as Africans, is that we cannot work together. If we come together, if we work together, we can do this. And this is why we are here. We've got Dadvest, where's Mr. Mzansi? Who are our financial advisors? We can sit down with the Dadvest to say, okay, how do we structure this transaction? How do we manage our finances? So this is one of the opportunities that we have, that we can have a conversation about, to say, how can we work together? There's 4 of us, how do we come together to make more money? The investment considerations, we've got the legal team will talk about it, but market research is always important before you invest in anything. Due diligence is equally important. You need to know who you're dealing with. Yes, we may have come with a lot of developers here, but you need to also know the developers. You need to ask the right questions. I think our legal team will talk about that. You also need the legal advice on whether you're doing the right thing, how do you register everything, they'll talk about. Financing options, CBZ is here to talk about the financing options, because it's not all the time where you have the money. Sometimes you want to borrow, or sometimes you want to invest into a project that will help you in terms of financing, because we've got projects that you put in a little bit and you're allowed to pay over time. And then also one thing that is very important is an exit strategy in any development that you get, in any contract that you get into. But I'll leave that for our legal advisors to talk about. I just want to talk about the real scenario, what is on the ground, because these are the questions that you want to know. So a lot of you want to invest in this Borrowdale. Everyone wants to be in Borrowdale, but you are staying here. No, but it is a fact. Everyone wants to buy a house, they want to be in Borrowdale, but does it make economical sense if it's an investment? Yeah. And a lot of them want 6 bedrooms and they have 2 kids. So we've got this property. We've got this property in Borrowdale, Harare North. It's a 5-bedroom house sitting on 4,316 square meters. The asking price for the property is 980,000. The rental that we can achieve for that particular property is 3,500, which will give you a 4.2% yield. The next property again, Harare North Highlands. Your area of choice, if you want to be in Highlands, 4 bedrooms, 4,000 square meters, 790,000 is on the market. Rental that can be achieved is $3,000 US. Annual yield, we are looking at 4.2%. Quinnington, this is a cluster. We were talking about the clusters where we're talking about clusters. This is a 3-bedroom townhouse sitting on 240 square meters. The building is 240 square meters sitting on a land size of 850. The asking price for that one is $420,000 US. The rental that we can achieve is 1,500. Annual yield again is 4.2%. Mount Pleasant, 3-bedroom house, land size 2,500, price 420,000. This is an older house. A rental that can be achieved 1,200. The yield is 3.42%. So this is what we are investing in. We are not even looking at the opportunity that this particular land can give us more clusters, but the issue is how do we get the financing? Hopefully the bank will be able to assist in that. Avondale West, we're now going to the medium density. That's a 1-bedroom apartment, 250 square meters. Price is 57,000. Rental that can be achieved is 350. The annual yield is 7.3%. So we're going like this. You're talking of Braeside. This is Braeside. For some reason, property prices in Braeside are very high, although they're quite old. So I fail to understand why it's like that. It's a 3-bedroom house, 300 square meters, land size 1,000 square meters. It's on the market at 130,000. The maximum rental that we can achieve for Braeside is 450, and the annual yield that we can get is 4.15%. We now move to our medium density. We're still in our medium density. This is the Bloomingdale. It's a newer development. 4-bedroom house, 190 square meters. The land size is 500 square meters. On the market at 120, we can achieve a rental of 500. The annual rental yield is 5%. Westgate, that's a 2-bedroom house, 380 on 1,000 square meters. On the market 110, rental that we can achieve for Westgate is 550, and the annual yield is 6%. We're slowly getting to the interesting stuff, don't worry. So we've got Glaudina, a 3-bedroom. So Glaudina, you know Glaudina, Warren Park, that Warren Park site. So these are newer properties. Yes, 3 bedrooms, 156 square meters, land size 300, on the market for 50,000. Rentals 300, annual yield 7.2%. We've got our Aspendale. I love Aspendale. It's the Borodale Brook of Mufakos. I mean, just look at the price, $87,000 for Aspendale. So Aspendale, Harare West, 4 bedrooms, 150 land size, only 200, just like Lenora, 200 square meters. Asking price is $87,000. Rental yield $600 for the brook. Yeah, and the annual rental yield is 8.2%. Right, I'm in my area now. Now this is my constituency. So Glenview, 4-bedroom house, 180 square meters, land size 200, sale price $30,000. Although they've started to shoot up now, so if you see anything around that region, you need to buy now because they've started to go up. The rentals that you can achieve. So the rentals I'm talking about, this is if you structure your property well and you put multiple tenants, because this is our investment. So our investment has to make money. We are not supposed to be passionate about our relationship, about our investments. We're not supposed to be sentimental about the investment. Yeah. So 30,000 rental, $400, annual yield 16%. You've got your Budililo, Harare South, 5 bedrooms, built-in area 160 square meters, land size 250, on the market for 33. We can achieve 450 for that, rental 16%. So this is my baby. So this is my property that we bought, I think 2 years ago. So this property is quite interesting in that the way this person built, we bought it, it was built already. The way this person built it, which is what we can do, is it was built in for multi-tenants, for multiple tenants. So you've got 2 by 2 rooms. So you've got 2 rooms that can occupy one family, 2 rooms that can occupy, which are $100 each. You've got 2 by 3 rooms, which are $150 per unit. So the rental you collect is about $500, and it gives us an annual yield of 20% per annum. So the reason why I'm talking about this is a lot of us want to go to Zimbabwe, we want to buy in Borodale. Do you understand? And yet we can make a return on investment like this. We have a lot of land, we have a lot of projects that have a lot of land, and these are the things that we can invest in. Eventually, when we want to return home and we want to move to our Borodale Brook, we can sell, because with this you can buy 10 of these in a couple of years. We can sell our 10 houses and buy our Borodale Brook that we want. But for the time being, let's make money. This is Gazalet. We just sold that recently. It's a four rooms building, 500 square meters. We sold it at 130,000. The rental that we are achieving for that one is 1,100, and it's an annual yield of 10%. But it's just that the owner hasn't renovated it. If they upgrade it, they can actually make an excellent return on the particular property. So those are other opportunities that are there that I want us to have conversations about. Let's work together, let's collaborate, let's pool resources, let's put our money together and build something big home. I'm going to just run through our developments. I think I'm out of time. I'm just going to run through the developments that we have. We do have our interesting Northgate development. We are exhibiting there. I think I would want you to have an opportunity to just pass through and look at Northgate. This is a game changer in Harare, very interesting. So what usually happens with the developments is when we launch, the price is quite low. But in about a month or two, the prices go up. So it's difficult to be the first. Yeah, so it's good to be the first one. So let's get into that project. It's very interesting. 17 kilometers out of Harare. As you know, Harare has no land. So if you are interested in Harare, this is one excellent opportunity that you need to invest in. So in terms of this one, there's opportunities for commercial, industrial. So what happens in any development where people are building, there's a need for the light industrial areas. So it's an opportunity to invest in those light development areas and then rent out the space to your electro sales, to everybody. Let's get there before they get there. We've got Tapsington Estate in Marondera for those that come from Marondera. So the thing is, you know, when we came 2 years ago, everybody was saying, you're just doing Harare. So this time we want to drive, leaving no one and no place behind. We are Tapsington Marondera. We are also here exhibiting. So if you want to, if you are interested, this is a high density, very interesting. Very interesting. We've just launched. I mean, we've actually got a special right now on Tapsington. The interest is quite high on that. We've got Dabuka. So Dabuka is our baby. Done very well. Dabuka is Marondera, 24 kilometers out of Harare. It's done very well. I want to talk, when I talk about Dabuka, so what we've done with Dabuka is we've got OKMart that has signed in to come and take space there. But what we are looking for OKMart is people like us to come together to say, okay, we will build for OKMart and collect the rentals, because OK doesn't build, it rents. So the pension funds are the ones that are making all the money. And we all pay, we've all been paying pensions and not really recovering anything. But we can be that person that can come together, pour resources and build that for OK. So the opportunities there is there for Dabuka, and also opportunities there for Northgate. So let's have conversations around that to say, okay, I'm interested in this, how can we structure this? Mr. Muzazi is here, he's our financial advisor. He can, oh, there is Mr. Muzazi, please stand up. So if you need conversations around structure and finance, that is the man. Yes. And then we do have Elma Park, that's in Marondera. This one is a lifestyle, so we sell everything, but this is a lifestyle. We've got Charlotte Muse, this is in Pomona, but apparently with this particular development, the plans, everything, approvals are there, but the developers decided, they said, no, we're too old, we just want to pull out. So the land is now on the market, but it's coming as a package. So if you're interested, let's have a conversation about that as well. And then we've got Penrose Park, this is Nyabira, quite interesting as well. And we know the town is expanding a lot that way, so we do have quite a lot of interesting projects in Nyabira. Gateway City, Mutare, for those that are from Mutare, we are in Mutare as well. Moore Park, this is Gweru, this is the Borodo Brook of Gweru, very interesting, and the uptake is quite high. Let's get into it whilst it's still affordable. We've got Mambo Estate, this is in Kwekwe, this is a lifestyle as well, interesting. We've got Hope in Bulawayo, this one is doing very, very well. So for any Matabele people, any of my relatives here, yes, yeah, Hope is doing quite well. So I'm half Shona and half Lewis. So yeah, I'm all over, so yeah, this is quite interesting. We've got Mongwe, any Mongwe people from Rusaba, I didn't know they were called the Mongwe. So this is a lifestyle in Mongwe waterfront. Interesting as well, let's talk about it. We've got flyers, we can come and talk about it. And then Macfeni. This is quite very interesting. It's a new project that's happening in Glen Forest, very interesting, which we are launching quite soon. So it's a lifestyle again. So it's not so as, because a lot of people now want to retire back home, they want to come back home. So this is something that we can invest in. We can invest in. So please come through and we can talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, my presentation was more informative than I didn't want to give you a lot of big words. I thank you.
That was certainly informative. I hope everybody is taking notes and will seize the opportunities to engage with SEEK on those projects there. Our next speaker is no stranger to us. Please join me to welcome Ken Sharp, who's CEO of Westcroft Properties Developers.
I'm sorry, but I think there's been a mix-up because in my culture, the ladies go first, and I agree with my good sister Chennai that she would speak.
Good afternoon. owe you a cup of tea. That's a promise. So my presentation basically is a walkthrough into the mortgage finance space in Zimbabwe. We're going to be looking at what loan products do we offer? What are the requirements against loan application? What are the terms and conditions? And possibly we then need to be looking at the issues that are actually presenting themselves to you, our diasporan clients, as challenges to obtaining mortgage finance back home. My first slide was actually going to speak into why invest back home, but my colleague Patience has actually adequately touched on to why you would need to consider investing back home. But just to add on, you're looking at it as a retirement plan. I'm sure some of us here do plan to retire back home, maybe on an agro-residential plot or in some borrowed, or whether it's in Mfakose or a borrowed or in Bari, but we intend to retire back home. If not, you're just also looking at the cultural connection. You may want to actually do it for your kin and kith back home. Maybe it's an upgrade, they were staying in some suburb and you want them to move into another suburb. More so, probably they're coming from Ekaya, Kumusha, into the urban setup. So these are some of the reasons that would then attract you to invest back home. But let me also just mention the issue of this retirement plan working well for you even if you are here in the diaspora, because you still can be retiring here and earning an income from all the way from home, receiving your US dollars from here, from Zimbabwe. It normally works the other way around, but I'm happy to say the reverse is also very applicable. And yeah, so that would come in as some of the additional reasons that I just wanted to touch on. And also you're looking at it, you would want then to have that geographic diversification. You just want to balance your portfolio. You have property back home, you've got property here. There are eventualities where probably overnight, if you've got all your property here and some catastrophe of sorts, we won't even mention other countries that have gone into war and someone is lost completely because they had invested everything in that particular country. So suffice on the reasons for investing back home, but we keep them saying it will be great for you to invest back home because you're basically giving back profitably to the community that you grew up in. So the mortgage types that are available, we do have loans for property development. We're talking into individuals that want to go into commercial developments. By commercial developments, I'm actually talking of where you're thinking of cluster homes. You could actually have a piece of land that runs into hectares and it's virgin land. You actually want to develop that piece of property, infrastructure development. We do finance. That goes for property development, even in the commercial and industrial. We do finance. Property purchase, be it commercial or on an individual basis. Existing property, you have identified the property through SIF and you'd want to buy it, we will finance that. Supposing you do have a stand that you already own and you want to build, we also do building finance. Home improvements, you already have a house or houses back home. Maybe you need to put solar, maybe it's a borehole, repainting, and all sorts of improvements that you can think of around there. We are there to finance that. Last but not least, you're talking of equity release. Some of us here already have properties that are encumbered back home, but we require school fees. We want to go on holiday, or it could be any other legal purpose. That's not speculative, obviously. So you can actually unlock value there because you are sitting your property and in turn we give you money to finance whatever you want to finance, be it working capital or anything. So basically, those are in general what you do. There I'm just emphasizing on like what you really can gain out of investing back home. Patients did talk about yields. There are certain property classes that probably would breach even the 20% that she was talking about. Talk of student accommodation. We now have 16 university campuses around the country. So you can imagine you invest in your high density property that is near a university. In one room, you can get upwards of $400. So imagine you've got 3 bedrooms. Yeah. So there's the student accommodation. You can actually invest back home big time. You can build schools. We finance that. Commercial and industrial, we do finance. This I'm sure I've actually touched onto it earlier on. But what I then just want to highlight on that is that when you get these rentals, basically when you obtain a loan from us, it's like somebody else is paying your loan for you because you are receiving rentals, and you just pass on those rentals to the bank as your repayment. So, I'll get back to that. And looking at the requirements against loan application, it would basically be your proof of income. When you're talking about proof of income, banks are not in the business of repossession. We would want to empower you to have property. So at the end of the day, just demonstrate your capacity to make the repayments. So if we're talking of individuals, mostly it will be your salary, but we do appreciate there are some that are running companies. So we want to look at the financials of that company. We also want to look at the company registration to see if you are compliant. So for the diaspora market, further, we actually want to look at your status of stay here so that we are able to structure what would go along with your status. By so saying, I'm saying there are some of us who don't exactly have all the papers in place. We still can make you access property back home, but these are structures that I'll talk into after this slide. So in terms of the terms and conditions, I would want just to highlight on 3 of the many that are there. The first one being the tenure, the current tenure. We're offering our mortgages up to a tenure of 5 years. However, I then just need to mention that on some select properties or select loan types, we can go beyond this. Why 5 years? This is actually in line with our National Development Strategy 2, which is guaranteeing the use of multi-currency up to 2030. So we would want to align with that one. Like I still have to repeat to say, however, there are some property structures where we can go beyond the 5 years based on the structure. Then our interest rate, it is a double digit. It ranges from 12 to 15%, but for argument's sake, we'll say it's 14% per annum. Now, when you look at that, it might seem quite punitive, but I'll share a bit of some insights into that. The insight basically comes from the issues that impede you to be eligible for a mortgage loan. So, on the one to do with interest rate, and the one to do with tenure, I've already addressed it, but on the interest rate, you're looking at 14% per annum. But again, picture this, you are not staying in that property. Someone is staying in that property. We looked at the rental yields as patients shared with us. So the flip side is, yes, there's the 14%, but how about the yield that you're also getting at 20%? So it sort of nets off. I can't even say it nets off because you still end up in a very much positive position. You can actually do the calculations later on. Talking into other issues, I did mention the interest rate, property prices, but when I look at property prices, in comparison from here, I'm sure back home, and the land sizes that we have, we can actually be said to be quite reasonable. But let me just highlight that the property price comes into play because it's a function of the interest rate, it's a function of the tenure. But otherwise, property prices back home are reasonable. So the other issues that are there, we know number one is the trust issue. The trust issue is actually on a macro and micro level. So for the macro level issue of trust, I think I'll leave that to the president of the Bankers Association of Zimbabwe, who also happens to be the CEO for CBZ Bank. He will address that, or he will speak into that. But from a micro level, we're just talking about the experiences that we've all had, where you have had a third party do a transaction on your behalf, and unfortunately, the money will end up somewhere else. I suppose a lot of us have actually gotten into situations like that. We also have an issue of access to information. We do have limited information coming through to you, our clients, regarding the end-to-end process, whether you're looking for a property, whether you're looking for an authentic property developer, the realtors, conveyancers, etc. So that will make you end up with what you call the bogus land developers, the bogus real estate agencies, etc. Because we have not told our story enough. We have not been engaging more maybe on a physical level, but here we are, and we've come in as a whole package within the ecosystem. We've got property developers here, we do have realtors here, we do have our conveyancers here. So that then addresses the issue of trust. One other issue in our engagements that we have picked is the issue of payment and remittance platforms. Probably there's also again been limited information with regards to that. So these issues, having listened to these issues and probably many more that you do have, and we are hoping to pick on the issues that we have as we interact outside this conference room. We have looked at a number of interventions as banks in Zimbabwe. Sorry, something had gone wrong. We have looked at a number of interventions that would give you eligibility, that will give you comfort. So looking at the issue of trust, a lot of banks have embraced digital transactions. I would speak from where I'm coming from. We do have a platform that we call the GIS system. So from end to end, you can eliminate a third party because all you do is to sit on your computer. You can actually virtually view a property. You identify the property that you want. You apply for the mortgage. Let's assume it's a building loan. It gets approved. Again, on that platform, you can start seeing your service providers popping up, bricks, cement, you name it, and then you're able to even buy them. So this eliminates the issue of third parties diverting funds. Talking about sending money home, there are a lot of platforms that again are on use. Talking of not being able to qualify, this speaks into incremental housing. Patients did touch to say all of us, we would just want to be in Borodale, you know? But it is a journey. It starts from somewhere, you know? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one. Why don't we do that incremental development with you? Why don't we grow with you? It could even be a big housing project. Why don't we do first funding with you until we get there? So those are some of the interventions that we have actually put in place. Like I did mention, some of us do not have adequate paperwork. Banks We've also been innovative enough, and from where we come from, we've got a product called Musha Umuzi Investment Account. So you basically are building into your funding on a monthly basis towards a property that you want to buy. You identify a property, we reserve it for you, and you'll be saving until your money is enough for you to acquire that property. So there's actually financial inclusion all the way to the diaspora. And this speaks also even to age limits. Probably you are beyond the loanable age. We then can use this.
20 years old.
We do have solutions. I'm saying you have retired, you are here, but you still want to invest back home. You still have the chance. You might have missed while you were still working, but you still have an opportunity through some of the products that we do have. So with that, what I would say is we've got a representative bank that is here with us, CBZ Bank. We do have our booth in there as exhibitors. For more information on our exciting products, which is your Ziki Cash, PayLink, PayCare, and understanding the GIS, the Musha Umuzi account, please do visit that store. Majita, Tatenda Siawong.
I'm so sorry, Ken's good manners threw me off and actually didn't introduce Chennai. So that presentation was by Chennai Chiketani, who's housing finance practitioner with CBZ Bank. So as she said, please direct yourself to their stand in the main exhibitor hall as well. I heard a few gasps when she said about the 5-year term, and I was thinking about that. But many of us will finance £30,000 cars here over a 5-year term, and we'll pay those off in 5 years. So those high density projects she's thinking about, so don't worry about the new Mercedes. Just invest. As soon as you drive that one off the forecourt, you're losing money. Okay, so now, Ken, thank you so much. If you'd like to come and share your thoughts with us.
Thank you so much. And while that presentation gets opened, just to say good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming today, and thank you for listening to me talk. I was given 15 minutes, and the presentation that I'm going to give you should be done in an hour. But not only that, I was given a 5-page speech by my team, which would probably take me 20 minutes to read. And then this morning I decided to rather speak from the heart. So I'm going to give you 3 things to really give you value for money. You're going to get 3 of them. I'm going to go through all 3 of them. And I'm going to do it in 4 times less time, which is the return I like to hear, 3 times return and 4 times less. So today I wanted to ask you all a question about Zimbabwe, about our home. If I was to say to you the biggest elephant in the room today, for you to decide whether to invest back home or return back home, would I be correct that that answer would be politics and money? And I'm not talking about money, US dollar money or GBP money. I'm talking about ZWD money, Zim dollar, RTGS or ZIG. So put up your hands if you agree with me that politics and money are the biggest issue in Zimbabwe. So I see more than 50% of people agree. So my talk today to you is going to be about politics, money, and property. Let's start with politics. Let's get the elephant out of the room. Yesterday I heard Joe Biden. I won't call him president because I don't think it's deserving or fitting for a president to confuse his enemies with his friends. When he called his vice president Trump instead of Harris, and he called President Putin instead of Zelensky. I mean, how serious can we get? Well, that's another day for an impeachment. But rather let me talk about why it's important. Because in our case of Zimbabwe, I think it's important we don't get confused between our friends and our enemies. You see, we look at politics and say, what does politics actually mean? I looked up the definition in the Oxford Dictionary today, and it said that politics are the activities associated with the governance of a country or area, especially the debate between parties having power. Or the second one is activities aimed at improving someone's status or increasing power within an organization. Or three, a particular set of political beliefs or principles. But I prefer the Wikipedia definition, which says politics is the set of activities that are associated with making decisions in groups. So here today we have politics. Because there's a group of people I see. I was told 1,300 people are attending today. And surely we have to have a discussion about making a decision. So those set of activities that govern our decisions that we make in this group are our politics. The word politic, and words are very important, the root meaning of words. I always look into the root, into the language where they come from. It comes from the Greek. The first part is polis. Polis means city, or place, or country. And the second word is polities, which means citizens. So politics are about people in places, simply put. I went to the capital, that is Washington, D.C. capital, last year in November, where we launched our development, the Hills Lifestyle Estate. And I noted the words they use, e pluribus unum, which means out of many comes one. You see, out of many of us comes one nation. Out of many developments comes one event. And it's interesting that they put these words on their money, on their passports, and on the seals of all three branches of government. Likewise, I enjoy the saying, one for all and all for one. As my daughter says, together or unified we stand, and divided we fall. In Shona, we've heard the saying a lot recently. But in Shona, if we take Inovakwa out and just leave the Nika, Nevenavayo, then we're okay. Because then the people can never be separated from their country. So I say to you, the choice today that you have, that I have, that we all have, is to support Zimbabwe to grow and prosper, or stand by and do nothing. I often say, if not now, then when? If not me, and if not you, then who? And I ask everyone here today the same question. If not us, then who will do it? I believe in the future of Zimbabwe. Not because of the abundant minerals that we have in our grounds that run into trillions of dollars, or the fertile soils that we still have that can not only feed our country but our neighbors, and not even the beautiful natural wildlife and fauna that Zimbabwe offers. But I believe and trust in our most valuable asset of Zimbabwe, which is us, which is you, the people of Zimbabwe. You are our greatest asset. You may not know that 62% of the population of Zimbabwe today is under 25 years of age. Just imagine that for a minute. These are the people that represent the future. And that is why we at Westprop have embarked on a journey of 26 years to put 1 billion bricks in the ground. As you can see our strategic statement, I'll put it on the screen there, and I'll read it to you. We are with 1 billion bricks by 2050 pioneering world-class, vertically integrated premium lifestyle communities in Zimbabwe. Using technology and innovation, we operate in a high-performance culture of excellence, delivering a trusted customer-centric ecosystem to live, work, shop, and play. You see, this is why we are literally building the future of our country brick by brick. Today we are almost at 70 million bricks, 7% of the 1 billion. Surely, with your support, we can get to the 1 billion before 2050. We believe in seeing through our projects to finalization, in bringing world-class, excellent buildings and structures that you've seen in other cities like Dubai and London and Singapore. We believe in smart cities, in vertically integrate ecosystems where people can live, work, shop and play within the same vicinity. There's no reason for you to spend 2 hours in traffic if you could walk across a park 10 minutes to work, and then in the same area walk to the shopping mall to do your shopping and walk back home. The next point that I want to speak to you today is that people in elections or in other states are said to vote with their feet. And I'm asking you, please, if you don't like what I'm about to say to you, you can use your feet. But if you decide not to, then please vote with your wallet. Because it's time to take out something from your wallet and invest it back home. And I'm not talking about the many relatives that you have that are dependent on your remittances, because I know Zimbabwe could be over $1.5 billion remittances to Zimbabwe a year. Could be $2 billion a year. That is a lot of money for a country. In fact, it's the money that's kept Zimbabwe alive during the Robert Mugabe days. And I know that money feeds many families and provides medical and education support for them. But I'm not talking about buying groceries or medicine. But I'm rather talking about putting your brick in the ground, making your statement, joining us in our vision of 1 million bricks by 2050. And I'm talking today about hundreds. I like the meaning of words and I like numbers. And I'm talking about hundreds today. So if you want to join us in our $100 million offering of the first bond that we'll be issuing in the next 6 months, then please join us in that journey. There's lots of room for it. And within that bond, there's structures of REITs and ownership of commercial and residential properties. Or if you want to divide that 100 million by 100 and buy a $1 million branded villa on the Hills Lifestyle Estate, which is the first branded residences in sub-Saharan Africa. Zimbabwe has a first, brought to you by Westprop. The first branded residences in sub-Saharan Africa. $1 million is the starting price for the villas there. Or if you only have $100,000 and you wish to buy an apartment in one of our developments at Millennium Heights, where we have 1,000 apartments currently under construction, or Pomona City, where we have 440 apartments in phase 1 and the same quantity in phase 2, almost another 1,000 apartments. Or in the Hills Estate, where we also have apartments. Put 100,000 in, buy an apartment. Those yields you saw from patients of 20% exist in Block 5, which is a new development we're about to launch. I'll show you the picture of it in this presentation. It's 112 units in Block 3 that I'm going to put on the screen for you. That's the building, a very beautiful looking building. And that building is currently finished. We hand it over to the residents next week. We're replicating exactly the same building, that's the entrance to it. We're replicating exactly the same building by doing 150 studios in 1-bedroom apartments. And the entire building is an Airbnb, serviced apartments with co-working space, leisure facilities within the building. And the unique offering that we're bringing to you for the first time is you don't have to buy an apartment in this building. You make an investment of $10,000 and you own a share in that apartment as a unit trust. So we're offering this product to the pensions in Zimbabwe as well, to individuals. And if you still want to buy an entire apartment, you can buy it. And if you want it to be in the rental pool, you can do that. Or if you want to use it for the time that you bought it for, if you own 10% of it, then you qualify for just over a month a year, then you can use it for that month. Or use it for a few weeks and put it back into the rental pool. So this gives you the flexibility to invest a less amount back home, but still have ownership of the product and earn a very good yield. And we're targeting 20% for that product. And if you don't have $100,000 to invest, then just buy 10 shares from Westprop. They cost $10 each, that's $100. We listed on the VFX, we listed last year. And those that invested with us have seen our value double. Our balance sheet when we listed was just over $100 million. Our last financial audit is at $280 million. And I know at the end of this year it will be above 300. Lastly, I would like to talk to you about leading where others don't. And this brings me on to the second part of the discussion. Let's talk about the money. Politics is in the background. As I've said to you, it's not about who's leading the country, who the president is, or who the cabinet is, or who the opposition members are. The politics is about you and your families, and your well-being, and your futures. And if you believe you have a future in Zimbabwe, then make that your politics. And put your brick in the ground. The money that we're talking about, yes, there's a problem. There's an elephant in the room. And the money was created naturally by the market. When they dollarized the economy in 2009, our GDP was 12 billion. Today it's arguably 60 billion. So you hear of all the negative news about Zimbabwe, but you haven't heard in the last 16 years that the economy has grown 500% because of US dollars. And the US dollars are still there today. And we guarantee tenure until 2030. 90% plus of the economy is US dollars. So when a ZIG was introduced and a lot of noise was made about it, that's all it is. Because today the total ZIG in issue is less than 3% of the monetary supply. We know there's $2.5 billion in the banks and probably at least $2.5 billion in cash, if not more. So at best, ZIG is 3%. And maybe by the end of the year they could be getting it to closer to 10%. But that means 90% of the economy is USD. And we're asking you to invest in USD and get your money back in USD. So the money is not a problem. The third one, about property. I think I've told you enough about what we're doing about property and leading the way. And I wanted to show you another slide from this presentation. And I'm excited about this because this is Borrowdale Flay. The wetland is the part in the middle, which is supposed to be protected. Unfortunately, some Chinese tried to develop it and they were stopped. And our development is around the wetland. So the Mall of Zimbabwe on the top right is the big flagship we're bringing end of this year to break ground on, $100 million mall. There's a $200 million office park where our head office is at the top. We're building a 5,500 square meter building that we're breaking ground on this year. Pokogara is sold out. We've got 3 units left and that's the end of that development. It's an $80 million product. Millennium Heights, we sold out on block 1, 2, and 3. Block 4 about 50%, and block 5, which we're launching now, I'm sure it will be sold out at lightning speed, is $100 million. So if you look at those developments, we could arguably say $500 million. And today, interesting enough, I looked at the developers in the room in the exhibition day, and I added up the value of the developments currently that they're offering. It's around $500 million. So today, here in that room there's $500 million US dollars waiting. But I'm not so excited about our 500 million because I look at what we've done. When we started these developments, by the way, 10 or 15 years back, no one was even thinking about Zimbabwe. No one was thinking of developments. When we talk of vertically integrated lifestyle developments, people are now coming on board with the idea. But we led the way of developing live, work, shop, play concept, a smart city. And many people now are building clusters. So exactly what Patience was saying, buy a piece of land or a house with 1 acre on it, knock it down, build 6 units, 12 units, 15 units. This land is exactly 500 meters from Millennium. So that's Sam Levy's at the top there on the top right. It says 11 is just below 11. And then these developments all around the retail, and the ones on the west is going west towards Elks Road. So when I counted these, there were 20 developments happening at the same time. A lot of them have already been finished. And the value I came up with was about $100 million of property. That's happening within 500 meters of our development. And that's what excites me, because when you throw a pebble in the pond, there's a ripple effect. And that ripple effect is being felt throughout the economy. So coming back to the presentation I promised you, and I'll make this short. We are basically leading the way as far as property development in Zimbabwe and Harare is concerned. We've been in the market since 2007. Our initial focus on the timeline was accumulating a land bank, and then in 2015 we started building that land bank. And we've today built and sold more than 1,000 units of residential property mostly. This year, 2024, which doesn't show on this slide, we're increasing the number of live projects. Last year you can see we had 5 under construction. We're increasing it to 10. We're doubling the number of product. We've just confirmed that our investment, we're now a public company, so we have these committees, and at our investment committee meeting last week, we just confirmed an approval for our immediate pipeline of product of $120 million. So right now, today, we have product available for $120 million to sell. We have a core value system which is basically built on trust, on reliability, and on executing on time. Our purpose is that it's better to give than to receive, and you can see a lot of happy, smiley faces. Our company's grown substantially. My biggest problem 2 months ago was we didn't have any office space. We had 5 people in an office. Even in my office, there were 3 people sitting. And today we've got new offices, beautiful offices, and everyone has their own space. These are some of the developments that we're doing. Mall of Zimbabwe, the Hills Lifestyle Estate, which is a $300 million project, the one I mentioned with branded residences. Block 3, Millennium Heights, is finished. It's handing over next week. Block 4 is under construction. Phase 2 of the 70 houses, the townhouses, which look like this. We have 54 of them under construction at the moment. 3 of them are handing over next week, finished. These ones we build in complete turnkey. There are 3 units, I believe, left that haven't been sold. And that's the end of the Pokogar, which is the Gardens, Manors and Villas. These are some of the other brands that we have, and these are some of the images that I've shown you on Block 3. As you can see, this building is entirely solar powered. The roof is solar panels. The balconies is the first balconies that have full planters on them, so it's a green building with trees and full shrubs growing on the building. And glass balconies, it's the first building with the glass balconies, and it's lifts. So we have a Coney lift that goes up to 4 floors. And the next building we're going up to 6 floors, which is Block 4 under construction. Block 5 will be 4 floors again, and then Block 6 will be 8 floors. Block 7 will be 10 floors. So this is some of the products. Thank you for listening today, ladies and gentlemen. And lastly, from the speech, I will read this to you. Because I think it's an honor really for us to be as Zimbabweans representing our country. Not only those of us that live still in Zimbabwe, but those of us, and especially those of you who've come here today. Because as diasporans, you carry a unique bond with Zimbabwe. Whether you left Zimbabwe for education, work, or personal reasons, your hearts remain tethered and bound to our land. You understand its potential, its challenges, and its resilience. Today I invite you to channel that connection into action, to invest in Zimbabwe's growth story. We have some of the products for you to invest in our lifestyle, live, work, shop, and play themed estates. But remember, real estate is more than just bricks and mortar. It's the bedrock of economic progress. Let me repeat that. It's the bedrock of economic progress. In Zimbabwe today, most properties are unlevered. The bond market is less than $100 million. In fact, we have 25 million, 25% of that bond market today. As a developer, we're not even a bank. The banks don't have the capacity. We need funds, large funds, to invest into Zimbabwe. I would not be surprised if we had a $100 billion fund. We could oversubscribe it today with demand for mortgages at good interest rates. So just imagine the future of diaspora-led projects, modern housing developments, commercial centers, and sustainable urban planning. We want to join you in this journey together today, and we ask you to please take our hands and join us in a very exciting future where we believe in innovation, quality, transparency, and community. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much for that, Ken. Just a note to say, for those who are joining us via live stream, whether that's on New Zimbabwe, Diaspora Insurance, or Zimbo Live Facebook pages, we do welcome your questions. We have had a ton of questions that have come through that will be put to the panel shortly, but we are still welcoming more questions. So if anything has come up in the presentations that we've had so far that's a burning question for you, please put it in the comment section on the Facebook pages, and then we will address them with the panel. Our next speaker is Vengai Madzima, who's a senior partner at MCM Legal. So please join me as we give him a warm welcome.
Now we know why they call you the Chief Energizing Officer. First, before I start, I would like to thank Patience and the SIF team for literally paying me to come here and present it to you. You know, us lawyers, we don't really travel for free, so I really thank them. They thought it was important that you would have a lawyer come here and discuss with you the legal issues affecting property investment in Zimbabwe. I think this is very critical. You need to understand all the issues before you put your money. I was saying to the other gentleman just out there, eventually you will come to see a lawyer. Either you come before the transaction happens or you come after the transaction happens. But whichever way, we get paid. We prefer though that you come after because we charge more. The leverage there would have changed. You'll be in a worse off situation. And there goes my first point. Cheap is expensive. You know, I went to law school here. So I understand how the system works here, and I understand how the diaspora responds to the system here. Ultimately, when you enter into a law office, there's a cashier's office on the other side. You go there, you pay your money, you go to the lawyer's office, you get your consultation. Initial days, you meet a junior lawyer who's an intern. They give you the procedure of how things are supposed to be done. Eventually, before you go to court, if you are to go to court, meet the lawyer that's dealing with your case. You have a discussion, 45 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, you go to court. He finishes, he goes on, you pay him your money. That's England. In Zimbabwe, you have a cousin who's related to an aunt who has their sister who works for Ken. And apparently, you want to purchase through that whole trail. And then after a while, you say to us, people are getting scammed. I mean, I'm sure the developers and the estate agents would confirm here. Zimbabwe does have over 1,000 transactions a week. Wow. Property sales. And of those 1,000 transactions, we have people that get scammed maybe 5 or 10 transactions. But apparently, somehow, these guys have got the media trailing behind them because that's all we hear. And then when we go to the background and we try to understand what happened here, especially for us lawyers, we then get to read the cases. And in the cases, they are the facts. And when you read the facts, you're saying to yourself, but really, honestly, somebody put their money here. They deserve it. Honestly, they do. I mean, you've got a two-tier process. You don't even go to the lawyer straight, you go to the estate agent, and if they're reputable, even the developer, they're supposed to have done a due diligence. Then you have your lawyer on the other side. He does his own due diligence. I mean, in such a situation, if you are scammed, you must make noise about it. But if you haven't done that, and you're complicit to the scamming, and it's an industry that needs to be supported, support them. The next thing I want to talk about is on cheap expensive. That's why I have to say, I thank patients for paying me to come here. And by the way, we are having a legal discussion. I'm not giving legal advice. We're having a legal discussion. So if you quote me and I say some things and then you go use them and they turn out not to be true, it was a discussion. But if you do pay, I may confirm it or not. Whether it was true. I'll give you the background on Google agreements and proactiveness. If Ken here comes to my office, he says he wants certain things done. He gives me the circumstances and the background to the transaction. I'll do an agreement that's specific to what he's doing. You get hold of the same agreement. You print it out, that's your agreement of sale. All the hidden elements of that agreement that are supposed to be protected can become your agreement. You have a problem and your circumstances are completely different. Completely and thoroughly different. You go to court, your lawyer loses, and you blame your lawyer. I don't understand how that makes sense at all. I mean, your circumstances, each transaction, I was being asked out there, how long does a transaction take when you're transferring title deeds? And I said, on paper, it should take 3 weeks, but we deal with human beings. So each transaction is different. It comes with its own circumstances. One circumstance is you're in the diaspora. Second circumstance is you need to get your papers notarized. Third circumstance, you find out it costs about £400. Fourth circumstance, you have to raise it. And now there's a back and forth of emails between me and you. I'm trying to client manage. I've got the other client on the other side, and they're blaming me, the lawyer. The transaction is taking a long time. He's ineffective, etc. Each transaction is dealt with according to its own circumstance. But if you take a proactive approach, ultimately, most of these things should be dealt with by your legal practitioner of choice. You have given them a platform to exercise what they know. But it's good. Criminal lawyers love the reactive approach. That's where they thrive. But commercial lawyers, property lawyers, we prefer a more proactive approach. And I'll give you a background. When I was a junior lawyer in a different law firm, it was shocking to me. I just come back to Zimbabwe and had started practicing. There's a company that came in from South Africa. They were into mining. They basically said, okay, we need opinions on certain issues relating to mining. What we didn't know at that time is they'd gone to 5 law firms and asked for an opinion. Because I had a background in it a bit, I'd lectured on property law and mining law. I just wrote a big opinion. And these gentlemen came back because apparently they understood a lot about that particular issue. And they said, okay, we'd want to work with you, but this is what we want to do. You're going to sit in our car 8 hours a day plus. We'll pay your hourly rate, which was $125 at that time, which wasn't my hourly rate per se, it was my senior partner's. But I was charging the rate, it was my rate for where I was at that time. It was very shocking to me because I was in their car for about a year, would go to meetings, and they would introduce me as their business development manager, and I'm hoping on live streaming we won't see other people I was having in those meetings and see. And what I learned was very key, because for some weird reason, maybe because of age or other factors, nobody paid attention. I was a fly on the wall. But I was drafting all the agreements and they were bad for them. Everybody was laughing, shaking hands, and I was the only lawyer in the room. I knew my task, I knew my mandate. 3-4 years later, I'm sure these guys knew what was going to happen. What they feared would happen, happened. But because we took a proactive approach, everybody was literally playing our game. Everybody would get, even if we go to court, they were going to court on our agreements. We knew our exit clauses. It's business, it's not personal. We knew everything, we were so prepared that the game was always ours. Even when we were losing what we wanted to lose. That's what I mean by proactive approach, and I encourage this market in particular, because this market in particular is a reactive approach to things. I mean, you've got all those people in there that have come for you. It's your obligation then to ensure that the people that you're dealing with are the correct people. I wouldn't, if you have a problem with any one of those, SIF will probably contact me to defend them. And the reality is, we'll bring out this video and say, we asked you to do your own DDs. She mentioned that the legal guys are coming. And I came and I said, please do your own DDs on people. Because what we want, we do not want our developments to be bad-mouthed. Nothing is moving because people are saying bad things about our development. So I concur with Ken. You also have an obligation to secure your money and make sure your money is moving. And I know that agents and the developers haven't said it, including the finance people. I've been back in Zimbabwe since 2007 and I've worked in the property space. There isn't one property that I know of that has gone down in value. They've all increased in value. I mean, I suppose the finance people will be able to answer on the fundamentals, but I believe it's because we do not exist in a credit market per se, and then most of the decision makers are property owners that have bought outright. So remember, the values of the property is determined by what you pay for it or what whoever is selling for it. So that could be one of the reasons. Oh, I think I've just switched it off. Okay, yeah. I think I'm talking, well, I think I actually moved on why property remains preferred store of value. So we have a history of exchange rate fluctuations. They've always been sold in US dollars from the time I was there. I don't know about any other currency. Even ZIMRA basically says, unless we see the transfer slip that says you've paid this in ZIG and you bring a copy from the bank, it's deemed as a US dollar transaction. So the government sees it as US dollars. The market deals in US dollars, but we understand the exchange rate fluctuations, but even through that history, they've maintained their value. Obviously, we suffer from changes in laws and policies, and we get these accusations mainly from laws and policies, but I'll tell you as a lawyer, our property law mainly is emanates from here, English law, and a bit of Roman Dutch, and a bit of customary law. And there hasn't been a lot of changes after post-2000, the year in our policy, especially when it regards to urban land. It's almost developmental change, where now they are allowing more change of use applications, etc., to encourage the last point, which is infrastructural development, which is why most of the developers are here. You also had a problem with remote management challenges. That's really a diaspora issue. And with these things, you engage your estate agents. It's been easier with properties as opposed to businesses, because with businesses, we've got a whole bag of stories of what we can tell you can go wrong. If you're our partners in business and you're located outside, you know, we just basically say then the government came and took the money in the safe. Whether that, there we've got a bag of stories, you can't beat us. And then obviously there's been a serious urban growth, urbanization, and a demand on these properties that are coming up. So we still encourage you to use land, even as lawyers. I'll describe briefly the titles in Zimbabwe. So this is more of a discussion, so that at least you understand your investment in Zimbabwe. There are two titles. That's the title deed as we know it, the deed. That one is the best title you can get. It's registered. And its validity comes upon registration. So we say it transfers real rights because ultimately it protects you against the world. When it's registered, that's of course in terms of Section 3 of the Deeds Registry Act, but I won't be giving you these sections, etc., going forward. But ultimately it just transfers real rights, and when you're holding that document, the document is against the world. Then we have sessions. Sessions ultimately can be local government or developer sessions. They transfer personal rights because the person who's holding the real rights at that time would be either the developer or the local government. They'll be holding, which is your councils, they'll be holding real rights, and then they give you personal rights. So when you're dealing with this, because you're passing limited rights, and this is where most of the fraud happens. On sessions. Why? Because the person who can issue the rights is the local government or the developer, because they are the ones holding the title deed. But you have situations where there are transactions between third parties without the involvement of the developer. So ultimately, you're basically saying somebody has passed their personal rights but you haven't communicated with the person who's holding the real rights. So to be careful, what you need to do is you need to ensure that the person who's holding the real rights, which is the developer or the local government, is the one that then gives you the agreement, and then you transfer those rights to yourself. In an ideal world, your agreement should be between yourself, the local government, or yourself and the developer after you've done the transaction. Therefore, in that way, you'll be more protected. And the last title is the leasehold one, where here we're talking mainly government, rural land, and agricultural land. This is very critical because I don't know, as observers of the industry, we have seen and heard of a lot of Sabuku deals. Quite interesting, really. The Sabuku has got no rights to sell land, nor to people who own farms under the land reform program. If it doesn't have deeds and it has an offer letter, there are no rights that have been awarded to date for you to sell the land. You can do the transactions, you can do the deals, but just know that the transaction is invalid in law. It never happened. You know, for those that love Latin, it's void ab initio. It didn't occur at all, and we can protect you. So there are no deals like that, and I say that particularly for this market, because this market has got an appetite for those type of deals. So those personal rights on the farmland can only be approved if they're being transferred, either leasing. Those are registered and approved by the government. But what is critical and key is that in farms, they are capable of succession in terms of our general succession laws. So if you die, the normal people that would inherit that particular property. So, and then now I'll move on to modes of property ownership. We're going to be very basic in our presentation so that at least there's clarity on investments. We have what people love, and this is a fulfillment of a dream, which is individual ownership. The title deed reflects your name, and you've purchased your property, you've put it in your safe, you're happy. So ultimately, if it's rental income on other properties, they are subject to the standard income tax. Payment of taxes is really your thing, but I need to tell you that they're subject to income tax. When you sell it, you have to pay capital gains. I was going to discuss on capital gains, but 5% capital gains if there's been a currency change. That means all properties that were pre-2019 conversion, that's the February one, they pay 5% capital gains tax that were bought pre-2019. And those that were bought post, or where there's a difference in currency, they are 20% of the capital gain, which is the difference between what you purchased and what you've sold for. In terms of exemptions, transfer between spouses are exempt for CGT. If the owner of the property is above 55 years old and they sell their principal private residence, that's also exempt for capital gains tax. The problem with this particular property is that it's potentially affected by personal liabilities of the owner to the extent that it can be sold in execution. What we basically mean here is if the owner is trading, he's a business person, he's involved in shady deals or legitimate obligations with CBZ, eventually they can come after the property and sell it in execution because it's got your name on it. And I'm sure they'll prefer such situations, whether or not they've got a registered bond on it. But because it's in your name, they can do that. And the last part is, it forms a part of your estate. Pardon my voice, I'm losing it. Somebody had lied to us that the weather is hot here. We will not say the names, but ultimately, yeah, I can put it here. Yeah. So, not used to such fluctuations in weather. Yes. And then the other way of ownership is company ownership. That is putting your property in a company. Here we're talking about limited liability for shareholders. There's a separation. Your debts cannot be attached by the bankers. If it's in a limited, in a separate company, they would have to do certain applications, which can be defended to ensure that they go after the owners. We say that directors, they enjoy perpetual succession. That means the directors can just be changed. It never goes into your estate. My presentation doesn't have pictures, so it's easier. It would be better to just listen. I see you're looking for a lot of pictures, but and if the company is trading, it will have income tax liability. But more than that, and this is where we have a problem with investing in companies that are trading. I mean, putting your property in companies that are trading, it will have a VAT hit. Meaning, when you're disposing of that property, you're either paying 5% or the 20% capital gain plus the 15% VAT. So your tax obligation will be ridiculous. We have gone to court on issues to do with this VAT. We have lost thoroughly, and you would have to pay. So you would have to be proactive when you're investing or putting properties in companies that are VAT registered. The disposal of the company obviously pays a CGT, and if the company that you've put your property in is not trading, you just have to do your yearly returns on the company, so that at least the taxing authority will not assume that it's trading and give you a tax hit. And then we have joint ownership. That is ownership either between individuals as married people. I'm sure this is what normally happens when you have your wedding vows. You want to buy your property and put it in both your names, or in a company trust or deceased estate as joint owners. To sell the property, because it's undivided, it's what one title did. All owners would have to agree that we're selling. Though the property is under one title deed, each individual owner owns their own share, and they can decide not to sell. We have had cases in our firm where one party has decided not to sell, and some of them end in litigation, but the law is very clear. You cannot force somebody to sell what they don't want to sell. We've actually even got cases that we know of where one partner is in the diaspora is saying let's not sell. There are other partners going through financial flames in Zimbabwe and wants to sell, but they cannot sell it because it's still one property. All they can sell is their share in the property. So ultimately, a joint owner cannot sell their own interest in the property, or cannot be forced to sell it. So it's another mode. You can own it through that mode. I'm not advocating for any mode. I just want you to have a deeper understanding of what it means. We have trust ownerships. That's when the properties are put in a trust. No income tax on trust, so there's tax efficiency. There's that avoidance of estate duty because the trust doesn't die, and you can prescribe ultimately on the trust how you want the property to be managed, etc. Capital gains tax is still chargeable on the sale by trust, and conditions can be prescribed in the trust. When we say conditions for sale, because the trust exists in two forms. When you are alive, it prescribes how the trust is run. When you're living, when you die, you can prescribe how things are run when you're dead. So we have, if you're that type of parent that basically says, I don't want my properties to be sold, people can starve before they sell it. You can prescribe that in the trust and it's never sold. We have situations, and this is a real situation, we have children that were left a property in Zimbabwe. I think they were staying here before, but they came back to Zimbabwe, and the boy was naughty naturally, and the girl was more, pragmatic and reserved about things. the boy sold off everything else that was movable and was only stopped from selling what's in the trust. Well, I mean the immovable property, because it was in the trust. They were all in a trust, and ultimately he needed the consent of his sister, because those were the terms prescribed by the trust. And the sister refused. So now he's just poor but not homeless. The last one, no, I don't know if it's the last one, but we're going to talk about deceased estates, and this is an issue that really affects the community that's here. And I'm just talking, basically I've just picked out issues that relate to property and that really affect the community in the diaspora. For some weird reason, some of you have decided to die here. And it's created a lot of complications for us back at home. I mean, for your families. For us, it's created quite a bit of work. So it's not a bad thing. When you die without a will, there's a law that applies. When you die with a will, there's a law that applies. And when you die with a will, ultimately, you can appoint an executor, being the person who you want to run your will, professional or non-professional, relative or not. If you die without a will, your spouse becomes the executor, and nobody knows your spouse more than you. For us, we just discover them. And I don't know. And the way we discover them is, we wonder that the deceased one, maybe this was the best. To be with the Lord sometimes is the better option. So if there's a will, ultimately there's a will, the bequests have to be done in terms of the will. There has to be master's consent. Where there's a will, not in all circumstances, there could be a conflict between beneficiaries, but the master of the High Court, who owns all estates, okay, basically in layman terms, in Zimbabwe, once you die, everything that you own becomes the master's if it's in your name. And then he gives his agent, who's the executor, to run your estate. You can nominate through the will, or your surviving spouse becomes one, to run your will on his behalf. It's very critical that we understand that it's actually on his behalf, not on the family's behalf. So he's the one that consents to the properties being sold in that particular will. So all disposals of property has to have the consent of the master. Where there are no will, it also has to have the consent of the potential beneficiaries. And I do not use the word potential lightly, because we've had this problem where somebody starts to claim the benefit before it happens. You only become a beneficiary after the estate is closed, not before. Before it's closed, the person is a potential beneficiary. So if your estate has got a lot of creditors, etc., that potential benefit can be sold to pay off the creditors. That is very key. And the person who makes those decisions are the executor and the master. So things can be sold off to defray. So there's a lot of work for patients that's coming to you through deceased estates, from people who are here. And then we have marital consequences. For some reason also we've noticed that as people come here, I think it's a change of environment, the assumption from a weather perspective is people will be closer, but that assumption is what we're taught in law school is never make assumptions, and I used to make those assumptions, but for some reasons people also divorce here, and the divorces would have been consummated in Zimbabwe, so they would have to be also finished in Zimbabwe. So when that happens, there are property consequences that come with it. It depends which type of marriage you've contracted to. I think there was the 511 marriages, which ultimately, just for your interest, all marriages are out of community of property, which basically means whoever owns the property can sell it without the consultation of the other. This idea of consultation is a Western idea. in Roman Dutch law, whoever owns sells whatever they own. Your property only gets joined together when you're divorcing. Just slightly, it's not really joined, it's just put together as assets. And then the judge decides which goes where. It doesn't necessarily go half-half. That's a fallacy. That's, for us, we view that as Hollywood. You would have to prove your direct or indirect contributions, and the judge determines what exactly should be divided in what manner. But before then, anybody can sell their own property, and anybody can bequeath a property that they own in their own name to a beneficiary that they want, leaving the spouse out. It is possible, it is our law. I'm just speaking as a lawyer. Do not hate the messenger. And the assets that are excluded on divorce is just those that are inheritance assets, or those that are acquired by custom. This leaves a sensitive side. There are assets that are bought before the marriage is consummated. They become a part of the pool, but it doesn't necessarily mean they'll be distributed half-half or in the manner. The circumstances of the case would determine how things are distributed, but they become the assets. We don't call it matrimonial property. We call it the assets of the spouses. That's how it happens in those marriages. So, marry wisely. And then we are now on other methods of acquiring property. We had said marriage was another way of acquiring property. So now we are on other methods of acquiring property. There is acquisitive prescription. We are basically saying that if somebody abandons their property for 30 years and you live in that property as if it is yours, you would have to you'd have to prove a few things, that you live there, the kids went to school there, and you've made 1 or 2, 3 renovations, because the key there is to prove that you were staying in that property as if it is yours. We'll do an application on your behalf and you get your title deeds. That has happened. We have done it. And if you have left your properties and you are close to 29 years, you should make sure you break it. Because we will do it. I've been doing that for your benefit. It's happening, it has happened. You just have to prove you are living there. And you know, these stories, they change. And for us lawyers, we just do what the client tells us to do. So if he tells us, you abandoned it, we'll write that you abandoned it to the judge. So when you come back there, do not say that somebody stole your property. Please go to the courts and check. And then now I want to deal with the tax implications and fees on property acquisitions. So we say there's the CGT, and I explained it, that is 5% before 2019 to make it easy, and 20%, which is the difference in the capital gain after 2019. We have the stamp duty cost, which is a buyer's cost. It's calculated on a sliding scale. We are given the tariff, and the tariff can change, but all the lawyers use the same tariff. Transfer fees are roughly 3%, and they're the buyer's cost. I spoke on VAT on sale, that's for registered trading companies. There's income tax costs on rentals, estate duty on deceased estate, which is your master's fees, and you guys suffer the document notarization costs, which happen here. And I don't know, I know they're expensive, but and then here you'd also have to speak to the finance people. They are here. So you deal with remittances from proceeds of your property. We are allowed, in terms of the 2023 regulations, to carry 10,000 in cash to export it out. If that percent has changed, I'm sure the finance people can correct me. Offshore remittances are about up to 50,000 per annum without exchange control approval, and all other transactions, amounts that are higher than that, have to be approved by exchange control before you could just make an application, say basically I've left, I brought in the money, etc. But that part should be held by CBZ. They'll be able to give you clarity But these are the regulations as they stand. If they've got other ways of doing things. That's the end of a beautiful video. Thank you very much.
I think that was a very thorough, whirlwind tour of the legal landscape when it comes to property. So thank you very much for that. So our last presentation for the afternoon is by Julian Swan, who's a chartered engineer with Imagination Factory. Let's give him a warm hand.
Hi everyone, how are we doing? We're all good? I just wanted to thank all of the presentations. They've been very informative, inspirational, and hopefully this last one's just as good. So let's see how we go. That's not long. That's a bad start. Sorry, that's the previous one.
That's not the one.
Sorry, I got to put my old man glasses on. Great. So I'm Julian Swan, founder of the Imagination Factory, as mentioned, chartered engineer. Born and educated in Belfast, so you may have guessed from my accent, I'm not from Zimbabwe. However, I am married to an amazing woman from Zimbabwe, so hopefully I've married well. It's stated by the lawyer. I think, if there's lawyers here, I have to back myself up. Really appreciate the invitation to share some of the innovation happening at the Imagination Factory. So the Imagination Factory is based in London, established in 2010, focuses on developing innovative solutions in transport, healthcare, wearable tech, and the built environment. Products range from the very simple to the very high tech. We do this for clients, some of whom are global brands, and we also spin up startup businesses from our own Factory Friday programs. So what is innovation? And I know that Ken's mentioned innovation today and smart homes. So we see it as something new and of value to someone. We work with our clients in these sort of complex, high-risk areas of high uncertainty and help them navigate through to certainty for exploitation of their idea. And we guide them to their target. Now, when I normally present this in the Northern Hemisphere, it points to the North Star, but hopefully we're going to the Southern Cross this time. So. And we have got three-pillared approach to this, with the planet at the center. No planet, no people, no profit. So we use human-centered design techniques to understand all stakeholders. And this is a collaborative process, which is why we're here today. We're here to listen, to understand, to hear from you. And we know that patients will probably have several comments about my numbers when I come to share that. And we're here to understand your thoughts on our innovations and our ideas. We have a circularity mindset, so that's in terms of energy and materials. We want to use our energy well, we want to not waste our materials, and we want to be developing products and services that are more sustainable without a compromise on quality or form and function. But the end goal is profit. As we've said, everyone's wanting to make money here, and there's nothing wrong with that. So we all want to profit, and what we want to do at the Imagination Factory is exploit our intellectual property, which can be helpful for you as well, and hopefully meeting your customers' needs through the value proposition, understanding your business models, and we want to do that for ourselves as well. So what we're trying to share today, or what we want to share today, is what we call our Future Solar portfolio programs, and that covers 4 different areas: hybrid energy harvesting, flexible PV development, and new alternatives to perovskite, optical solar capture, and also zero carbon hydrogen production. So some pictures will hopefully help understand a bit more. So these are examples of where we've developed some products. So on the left-hand side, you're seeing a solar-powered irrigation system where we've harnessed the heat of the sun to create a super low-cost irrigation system. So combining modern solar collection to generate steam. And then what we've connected is a steam pump that was designed in the 1698, so really, really simple, earliest steam pump. And we call this a combination of the old and new technologies, retrovolution. And we developed that with the Department for International Development in the UK. And so we've got that to a prototype level, and interested in anyone who would want to take that forward. The next part is a waste material processing system, and this is at a small industrial scale, so 10 meters by 20 meters, and we can take waste materials. So I know that when we're looking at new developments, there's wastewater processing, or there's sewage waste, and what we want to do is actually take that rich waste, which is normally viewed as toxic, and we can then process that into useful green gases. So it could be biogases, or it could be hydrogen themselves. And then the final bit on the right-hand side is, is what we want to talk to you about in a bit more detail, which is a smart photovoltaic building structure. So building new build with the solar cells integrated into the building itself. And I'll go into that in more detail. But what I wanted to do first was take a step back and understand some of the challenges. And we think that these are not necessarily unique to Zimbabwe, they're unique to all developers globally. There's challenges with infrastructure, and in terms of when you're developing new areas, you need to supply electricity, you need to supply water, you need to take away sewage, and there's a lot of investment before you've even started thinking about the buildings. So that adds a cost to your development. There's a high cost of construction as well. The materials themselves, traditional methods of building can be quite expensive, and so we think we've got a solution that can improve on that. And the speed of construction is also, we're outgrowing, the populations are expanding, and in the UK we're not meeting the needs of the number of buildings we have, so we want to come up with something that can address that as well. As I mentioned, we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. We believe there's opportunities to move away from systems and principles which were introduced in the Industrial Revolution. We don't feel that centralized energy is necessarily the future. And why would we, when we've got 4.4 to 5.2 kilowatt hours per meter squared? The globe itself is given 10,000 times the amount of energy that we use as human beings. It seems crazy to us that we're not harnessing that resource, and especially considering that Zimbabwe gets twice the amount that the UK receives. The system that we're just about to share with you, and you're the first people to see this, actually works within the UK, even in our rubbish weather that changes and makes everyone sick. So this is what we believe is a solution. So we've got a solution which is a smart modular building with integrated PV. So what you're looking at here is the surface that's active, that is actually on the vertical as part of the modules as you build, and that is collecting solar energy the whole way around the building itself. So we want a revolution in design, construction, and sustainable energy. By integrating the PV into the building surfaces, the collection potential is more than is required for a domestic building and even small industrial buildings. So if you are looking at building a little factory, you can actually be fully off-grid, fully electrically powered. You can see some of the PV cells on the front wall. Hopefully it's got a little bit of a semiotic nod to Great Zimbabwe. You can see the pattern there. That's what it's intended to be. So So this is just a little video showing the intention. So with ground screws, we're then creating the foundations, putting in structural foundation modules and a perimeter frame, which is key to creating the electrical circuit. And then we've got smart building modules of about 1.2 meters wide. And this can enable you to actually build the building much quicker than traditional building methods. Once the top frame's on and you've got the roof on, you've got a completely sealed environment, and you can then do your second fit, your completion of your interior. And there are benefits from smart modular buildings, building efficiency, use of materials, and improved quality. The quality is defined at the factory, and it saves on terms of materials. The building materials can be quite wasteful. It eliminates complexity and hazards. It can make a safer environment for building. And with our circular approach, it also allows you to expand. So if you want to extend your building or have a second purpose, it's easy to build on top of. This is a little bit of a behind the veil look. So what we're looking at is a structural panel that interlocks, as we mentioned from the video. It comes with the photo cells already embedded within the panel, and lots of surfaces and finishes are also possible. So on the outside, you've got your building sealed and ready to receive the solar energy. And on the inside, you've also got some pre-fitting done as well. So you've got both external and internal fit out are completed at the factory. Minimal on-site working, effectively a plug and play with lighting circuits, sockets, and appliances ready for hookup. And as I've mentioned, different surface finishes that can be designed during manufacture. Now this is where patience is probably going to have some points. So these numbers are based on UK, okay, so not Zimbabwe, but the build time against a traditional home is nearly 3 times faster. That's partially because of the foundational work, but also the way that the walls can be put together. So in terms of the sort of cost per meter in UK terms, it's a reduction in price. Using ground screws may not be appropriate for every piece of land. So we've got a comparison between foundations, and this is based on a 185 meter squared or 2,000 square foot home. And then the materials difference, even with the active photovoltaic cells, is 20% cheaper as well. And a significant cost saving in labour means that you've got a significant reduction in build price, but that's something we need to go into more detail and discuss. In real terms for the actual end user, we know that an average home needs about 58 kilowatt hours, and by covering this perimeter of the building, the peak usage is in the kitchen. So when you've got your oven and your hob and your extractor fan and lights on and your AC running, that's probably the worst case section of your home. And we've done some analysis that you need about 3.6 kilowatts for that. That's easily covered, especially with Zimbabwean solar insolence with 2 modules themselves. So in real terms, our future solar home can generate 75 kilowatt hours, which means that there's a surplus of energy, which means that surplus energy could be used for community requirements like street lighting or charging of vehicles. So from a developer point of view, we see this as a benefit because you're not having to build a substation or some sort of powers for your new development, and you can actually then deal with the community as well. And what our vision is, actually, we don't necessarily want to be getting all our stuff cheap from China and shipping it around the world, because that's undermining all of our green credentials and improvements and reduction in carbon. So what we want is actually the future solar factory to be in Zimbabwe, actually to be where the development is, because then you're reducing all of the shipping and the transport. And as make that demand. Sorry. And we can do this in two phases. We can do this with existing materials and products and bring them together for assembly in Zimbabwe, but as it's been mentioned several of our conversations, that you've got the raw materials here. There's no reason why you shouldn't be taking the raw materials, building in your future solar factory and making your modules that can be rapidly deployed and made into buildings. So what we're looking for, we're designers and engineers, we're looking for partners, we're looking for investment, we're looking for people that want to be part of the in-country localized production. We're looking for developers that I'll apologize, this is a product designer's, not an architect's vision, so we'll take guidance on that. But we're looking for developers and builders and specifiers and architects as well to make this a reality. So, thank you for your time. Hopefully
Okay, thank you so much. That concludes our presentations for the afternoon. All of our presenters and panelists do have representation in the main hall, so you can visit their exhibitor stands and get information, with the exception of Julian, whose details are on there. So if you can't see it from the back and you do want to get in touch with Julian, it's julian@imaginationfactory.co.uk. That's Julian with a J, julian@imaginationfactory.co.uk, but all other companies represented do have representation in the main hall. So, without further ado, and probably the segment of the afternoon that you've been most looking forward to is having your questions answered. So in no particular order, I would like to welcome the panelists to come up to the stage and take a seat, and I will just name them as they come up. So it's Patience Patonga Moyo, Receive MD and Licensee Estate Agent. Chinai Chiketane, Housing Finance Practitioner with CBZ Bank, Julian Swan, Chartered Engineer with Imagination Factory, Bengai Matima, Senior Partner, MCM Legal, and Ken Sharp, CEO of Westcott Property Developers, and Lawrence Nyazema, Group CEO of CBZ Holdings Limited. This session is going to be moderated by my colleague Muzi Muduna, who's going to come up and just take us through this session as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Right. Thanks, guys. To start off with, I just want to pass my gratitude to the speakers here. Massive thank you. If you could give them a round of applause for the great presentation, please. Thanks. So we're going to do a panel where we're going to have a conversation with all the speakers. Before we start that, I'd like to ask Lawrence if he can share a bit of information about what CBZ has got, and he's going to give us a bit of information about what to look forward to for ourselves here in the diaspora. If you could give him a round of applause, please.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremony. Good afternoon, colleagues. So today I realized one thing, that I've wasted a career in banking and finance when there are more exciting and interesting things in property. So whilst I'll talk a little bit about the economy, I will end with property. So the most common question that I get asked is to say, what is the state of the Zimbabwean economy? In summary, I would say the economy is in decent shape. If you go back to 1991, 1992, we had one of the worst droughts in living memory. And our economy grew negatively in that year. Fast forward to 2023, 2024, we are in a similar situation. But you know what? Our economy is expected to grow by 3 to 4%, despite us having one of the worst droughts in living memory. What does that mean? It means from 1991 to 2024, we have diversified our economy in a big way. So when we were growing up, almost everything was agriculture. When we were growing up, we were not getting $2.2 billion from the diaspora every year. So on that note, I want to thank you because you are one of the reasons why our economy is going to grow this year. So we are expecting that 2.2 billion from yourselves. We are also expecting a significant amount to come from gold. You may be aware that gold is actually hitting its highest prices in living memory. That's a plus for us. On the downside is obviously the drought. On the downside is the prices of PGMs. Also the pricing of lithium would be on the downside. So when I look at the Zim economy today, most of it is actually services. Your retailing, your wholesaling, your vending, all that is the biggest portion of the Zimbabwean economy. I'm talking about diversifying that economy a bit. Then manufacturing is also punching in. Unfortunately, on the manufacturing side, a lot of it is value addition of agricultural produce. And because we are not producing enough agricultural produce, we tend to import. So one of the biggest imports that we have as a country is cooking oil. And we import crude, and then we clean up that crude to come up with cooking oil. So your money that you send to us, part of that 2.2 billion, we spend almost 300, 400 million of it importing cooking oil. And that's an opportunity for us to grow more soya, isn't it? To grow more sunflower. I'm just giving you a few ideas. One of the biggest myths that is there is that agriculture is our biggest, the backbone of our economy. But when I look at the statistics, you hardly go beyond 15% economic activity in agriculture. So we are diversified, we now have services, we now have manufacturing, mining is a big one. But big as it is, I think it's around, it's not more than 15% as well. Then before I talk about property, I'll just talk about three things that are exciting me about our economy right now. The first one is Manise. So go back to 2020, there was nothing happening in Mvuma. But $1.5 billion has been put into that project. And it's going to be one of the biggest steelworks on the continent. Are we taking advantage of it? Not only in terms of steel, even in terms of infrastructure around Chivui, infrastructure around Mvuma. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that Midlands landscape would have completely changed. And the investors could not believe it, that we were wasting such a world-class asset, which is only 200 kilometers away from the sea, from the port. And all the other requirements to produce steel are within 100 kilometers of Mvuma. The other one, and I'm really praying that that discovery is real, would be Mzarabani. That's gas. I'm actually told that it's one of the best natural gas prospects on the continent. So if we get it right, it means we'll be able to produce our own liquid fuels, we'll be able to convert gas into electricity, we'll be able to produce fertilizers. And we have said we want to be a big agricultural country. So a lot of things are falling into place. Then finally, and this is related to property, and you are probably hearing it for the first time, there are some positives that have happened from a political perspective. I'm borrowing from Ken's speech earlier on. The first thing that we have done, and we've been doing this since 2020, is digitizing our title deeds. So if you've got a title deed from Zimbabwe, and it's one of the 400,000 that are there, it's now in digital form. The next stage is obviously for you to pay a small fee, and then you get your digitized title deed. Why that is important? why that is important, Vengai, and I like your sense of humor, by the way. When he was presenting, he was talking about fraud. So it takes away all those fraudulent transactions. And you are able, from your phone, to have a view of all the title deeds that are linked to you. But that's not what I'm excited about. The biggest empowerment exercise, in my view, that we will see in our lives is what we are calling the National Title Deeds Program, where government has simply said, we want to take all the informal settlements, sort them out, and give them title. So a lot of the projects that were shared with us today are futuristic, isn't it? But we have got a stock of badly done properties, including where you were duped. We are saying we cannot destroy. So the agreement that we had with the government, I think earlier on this year there was an exercise to bulldoze some structures, which did not go far, because we were saying, you know what, billions have gone into these structures. What kind of a people are we to destroy? Is it not better for us to sort out the chaos that was there? Agreed, we will not be able to sort out 100% of everything. But if we keep 70% and maybe destroy the 30% because it was built where there's supposed to be a sewer line, are we not going to be a better economy and a better people? St. Mary's and Zengeza? Anyone from those parts? So to give you an example of why I'm saying the National Title Deeds Program is the biggest empowerment effort we will ever see. By the 1st of August, we would have started giving title to some beneficiaries who were in St. Mary's and Zengeza. Those houses were owned by the municipality of Chitungwiza. They have been paying rentals since time immemorial, maybe 50 years or more. And we are saying it's enough of paying rentals to cancel. And for a fee of $300, they are going to get title. So we are looking at 25,000 houses. This is just a pilot. It will happen right across the whole country. So the pilot is 25,000 houses. And earlier on, Patience was saying a house in the high density is 30,000 and it. So for those with calculators, if you say 25,000 times 30,000, you get 750 million. That's the potential value that we are giving our people that they did not have before. Chennai was also talking about equity release. So if we are able to get decent financiers who will give Chennai a line of credit, Chennai will go to those beneficiaries and say, I will take your title deeds. And for a house that is worth 30,000, I will give you 10,000. So that you rebuild the infrastructure, you can do home improvement, you can put the solar, you can also sort out infrastructure around your suburbs. So I'm excited about the opportunities that we are seeing as a country, and I'm happy that even in a year of drought, we are going to be growing as an economy. So we are positive, and today I will spare you any discussions about ZIG and US dollars and other currencies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So when Lawrence mentioned about the digitalization of title deeds, there was a little bit of a timid round of applause. I'd like to give you guys another chance to give a proper round of applause. Okay, so we're going to start off our discussion. I'll let you guys in on something that happened last night. We had a networking dinner with these guys, and I told them that if you don't pay me, I'm not going to hold back on the questions I'm going to ask. I checked my account this morning. Nobody paid me. No one paid me. So it's your fault. Okay, so thank you very much to start off with for the opportunity to come and speak here. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Muzinduna. I invest in the UK. Pretty much a lot of the things that these guys have been talking about, we do that in the UK. and we are very interested in investing in Zimbabwe. And what we were struggling with, which is what Patience talked about, was the information. We need the information to get started, but the information that we currently have, unfortunately, is the negative one. It's just human nature. We tend to hear about the bad things that have been happening. So I'm glad we have this opportunity to share the other side. So to start with, let's address or readdress the elephant in the room, as Ken mentioned. In context, what we tend to have with people that start investing in properties, we struggle with time, we struggle with knowledge, and we struggle with money. And that's the biggest issue, especially in the UK. We obviously have the same issue in Zimbabwe. But underlining those three things is fear. It could be fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of being judged. However, when it comes to investing in Zimbabwe, that fear is a little bit bigger than normal, because there's other issues that you guys have addressed today, but I would like to readdress them. For those in the audience and those that are watching who are thinking, well, there's the political issue, there's the money crisis, we don't understand, we've been duped, as you've mentioned. What's the one thing that each of you could actually share to just give us a bit more confidence in starting to invest in Zimbabwe? Thanks, Julian.
I'll start, because mine will be short. My experience of Zimbabwe is actually quite small. I've been over a couple of times in the last few years, but I do really see a place that's got so much potential, and that's why it's inspired my company to think about projects that would actually be applicable for the country. So I have no experience of investing in Zimbabwe, but it is something that we are looking to do personally.
Amazing, thank you.
So potential is only there until it's realized. So I'll make a deal with you, Julian. You buy a property from us and we'll buy one of your smart homes. And then the potential can be realized on both sides. So my view is politics is viewed within the lens of time. And for me, politics is not a problem because my lens is not 5 years, which most politicians have during their tenure. Some of them get to stay 2 terms, but these days even a 3rd term is not possible in Zimbabwe. So we know that they have short-term lives. Property has a long-term life. Property is forever. It's not only for your generation, but the next generation. We at West Prop, although our immediate horizon is 26 years, so why would I be thinking about politics today when I'm really looking at 2050, when those politicians will neither be alive nor will they be in power? So it doesn't bother me, so long as I can get to 2050 and work with whoever I need to get there. And then I'm looking as West Prop as really the next generation, because we're creating a multi-generational business. That's why we listed it. So I think if you take into context the equation of time, politics becomes insignificant.
My view is on rate of return. Zimbabwe is a developing country. We do not have enough infrastructure for the market, so the demand is very high. So what has been happening is, as there are more new developments coming on the market, the older neighborhoods are gaining in value. Meaning if you had invested in another neighborhood, an old neighborhood, it has gained in value, even as the new developments are coming in, because the demand is still high. So far in our region, I think we've got, people do consider it to be expensive, but it's very stable in terms of return on sales. You don't normally lose money on property unless the investment you have made initially was terrible. But if it was a sound investment, you do not lose money on property. So that rate of return, that store of value, we can actually compete with any other country in the world, because we do not have serious market fluctuations that you do find everywhere else, including here. So at any point in time, when you decide to sell, you are guaranteed to get minimum what you put in. But chances are you get more when you sell.
Thank you. I just want to refer to your slide. You know, when Guy showed us a slide where he said cheap is expensive. The reason why a lot of people lose money is because they don't want to pay the professionals to protect their investment. And property is a lifetime investment. It's the biggest investment one person can ever make in a lifetime. So engaging the professionals, the legal advisors, the estate agents. So in terms of estate agents, we've got registered estate agents who are regulated by the Estate Agents Act and pay towards the compensation fund. So should you lose any money after you've used those ones, you are compensated, you get your money back. So the key is to use registered estate agents in your investments. You are guaranteed that your investment is protected, and they will also do the necessary due diligence with you on any particular investment. Property management, again, we are losing a lot of money because you want your friends, your relatives to be managing properties. Those people are not property managers. They just collect rent. So when you come back, your property is deteriorated. They don't give you reports, feedbacks on how your property is. Theirs is just to collect rent and pass it on to you or give to whoever they want. And even if you ask them to do any repairs or maintenance on the property, it's not done properly. So please, it's important that you engage registered estate agents to help you with your property investments back home.
Thank you.
So for me, it is actually to re-emphasize that when you look at property, it's actually a solid hedge against inflation. So no matter what happens, you have a solid property back home. But again, it speaks into, I would encourage to say, on your life, on your property, we used to have situations where we would rely on third parties. In this case, I'm talking about something that becomes also the elephant in the room, which is trust. But we're happy to say, as banks back home, we have gone on to digital platforms where you can actually own the whole process from wherever you are. So it does then eliminate all these other anxieties that may be there. But further to that, like I've alluded earlier on, we also have the macroeconomic, just the macro level of trust. And my pleasure is that it's one of those few occasions that you delegate upwards. So yeah, Lawrence, take it on.
Thanks, Kenai. So we don't want to go back to Zimbabwe and leave you with the impression that our local currency ZiM is a bad currency. So if you go back the last 20 years, our biggest problem has actually been inflation. How do I describe inflation? If you go back to 2018, when we were a largely dollarized economy and we introduced the ZiM dollar, reintroduced the ZiM dollar, the rate was 1-to-1. Others were saying 1-to-1 gauge. You fast forward to the 5th of April 2024, when we did away with the ZiM dollar, the rate was now 33,000. That is inflation. It doesn't mean that we were now 33,000 times richer, does it? But it simply means we were inflating away our local currency, which is why I'm saying the biggest problem has been inflation. So the solution around it is obviously to manage inflation. So the introduction of a new currency was a must. I could no longer relate to numbers that I was seeing in ZiM dollars. Someone would tell you that you have made a profit of 3 trillion, which would be like 150 million US dollars in a month. It did not make sense. So it was necessary to come up with ZiG. We started talking about that currency, it must have been in September last year. And I'm happy that as bankers, we were consulted all the way, and we are still being consulted. And as president of the Bankers Association, I'm fairly satisfied with how that process has been done. It has been fairly transparent. So what we did is we came up with a currency that is backed by hard currency, which is US dollars and other hard currencies in the world, as well as precious minerals like gold and diamonds. And we have said for us to print one local currency, there has to be that backing. When we started, we had about 270 million worth of reserves. And I think the ZIG that was introduced then was only 80 million, which means it was 3 times covered. The reserves have since moved to 370 million since then. So we've been building up our gold. You will ask me, where does the gold come from? For our royalties from the mining companies, we've said pay us in commodity, not in money. Then for the US dollar element, we say to our exporters, when you export, 25% should be surrendered to the central bank. So that's where the reserves are coming from. So naturally, it will be a slow process of building those reserves, which is where the 2030 came from, to say it will take time for us to build enough reserves. But you know what, Zimbabwe is actually one of the few countries that has got a currency that is backed by something. A lot of the currencies are actually not backed by much except faith and economic activity. So the reason I'm not concerned about the ZIG losing value is we have got a formula that is self-correcting, which says you will introduce more local currency when you have built up reserves. The only issue is whether we will stick to it or not. But my boss, the governor, has said it will not happen on his watch. So he says he's not going to introduce currency that is not supported or backed by reserves. And knowing him from his career in the banking sector, he's a man who means what he says. And for now, I will give him the benefit of the doubt, and I will be supporting him. So as a local banking sector, we are fairly comfortable with the currency measures that have been put in place, and we believe they will work. Thank you.
I think for many of us, this issue has been addressed. Some people might have a little bit more specific questions about how to address the fear that we have about investing in Zimbabwe. So I really appreciate that. For me especially, there's a lot of information you've shared that I've never heard of before, even though I'm Zimbabwean in the diaspora. So appreciate the information being shared. Now, typically, from speaking to many Zimbabweans who are here, who are interested in investing either here or in Zimbabwe, we seem to have mainly 4 different categories of people. There's the first timer, never invested anywhere, not in England, not in Zimbabwe, but has some money and is interested. And then there's the first time investor for the foreign side. They've invested here, but they've never invested in Zimbabwe as much as they would like to. And then you've got the experienced investor who's been in Zimbabwe, but has been burnt. Unfortunately, they're the ones that speak to us the most, because that's the experience that we tend to hear about. The 4th category is the one that's been investing in Zimbabwe for a long time. Things have been going okay. We don't tend to hear from them. If I could ask Patience to give advice to the person who's investing for the first time. I've got some money in my bank, I want to invest. I prefer to invest in Zimbabwe, but I don't really have that much knowledge, I don't know anything. What advice would you give me for that? There's one just here.
Thank you very much. It really depends on the type of budget. So I think the issue is identifying a property, doing the necessary due diligence. And if you are investing, we always recommend that your lawyer guides you through the process. So whilst the seller has their own lawyer guiding them, one should have their own lawyer guiding them through the process. So you then have your lawyer is a buyer doing due diligence, the agent doing due diligence on the particular property as well. And then we also discuss the returns. A lot of people, when they do come, they know what they want. You know, they've heard from friends, but sometimes what they want may not be what is possible or the right thing to do. So we always then give that particular advice. But for a first-time buyer, we recommend that their hand is held by their legal advisor. Whilst it is our role, well, I'm a registered estate agent, it is my role to protect both buyer, both seller, but also the legal advisor guides them in a way that I cannot. So I think having a legal advisor is the best way of protection, and one shouldn't fear anything. I don't know if you've got any follow-up to that.
No, I think it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's not just unique to Zimbabwe. Obviously, I just wanted you to highlight the Zimbabwean side. And here in the UK, it's typically the same stuff. You want to do your due diligence on the deal that you're doing, but you also equally want someone experienced to walk you through the process. And then the legal aspect as well to support you. So thank you very much for that. And then the second part of it, which is the experienced local investor who knows how to invest here, but has never invested in Zimbabwe. That one I'd like to pass to Ken, please. What advice would you have for that person?
Yeah, well, if they're an experienced investor, then they would not necessarily need to know about the technical aspects of what they're getting into, because they probably have some idea. Whether that can be replicated exactly in Zimbabwe, the same model is yet to be determined. But I think an investment in property is really simple. At the end of the day, it's what yield it produces to you, and how much risk there is in getting to that yield. So in our case, I would say at West Prop, the unit trust that we're creating in Block 5 of Millennium Heights is an ideal investment to start with, because it's smaller size, it's 10,000. It gives fractional ownership that you can either use to stay in the unit or use to rent it out. So either choose to get a double-digit yield or have benefit of using the property when you're there. And it's a low-risk investment because it's the 4th building amongst 1,000 apartments that we're doing. So it'll be the only building amongst 12 buildings in this development that's a serviced apartment. All the others will be owned outright by the owner.
Amazing. Thank you very much. I think that's really helpful, actually. Especially for people that know how to invest here. A lot of things might be slightly different, but typically it's the same concept when it comes to investing. And it's good that you guys actually shared some numbers as well, because we can look at comparisons to what we're used to seeing in terms of returns here in the UK versus what we're seeing in Zimbabwe. And I have to say that was actually quite surprising, because what we tend to hear is the returns aren't great, the risk is super high, what's the point? So thank you very much for sharing that. Really, really good. And this next one obviously has to come to you, obviously. So this is the experienced investor, has invested in Zimbabwe a couple of times and has been burnt, and their experience not only has stopped them from actually investing ever again, it has given them a new career, which is spread the information about my bad experience. What information have you got about that one?
I think if they're an investor, then getting burnt is part of the process. I mean, if you're investing, like, it's a business, that's what you do. There are downsides to every business. You continue, you learn from your mistakes, because obviously there were mistakes made for you to get burnt. Even to the seasoned investor, it's always advisable to have some people hold your hand while you're doing investments, because if you're an investor, you do not spend as much time in that industry as the professionals in that industry do. So once in a while, you need somebody who's on the ground to guide you, to tell you what's hot right now, what they're anticipating, what are the projections there, what new models are coming out, because sometimes you may not know the new models. Some of us, we live in Zimbabwe, but we are also hearing some of the offers here, and we're not very happy about it, because we're supposed to hear it from home. And it is our hope and anticipation that by the time you come back, we've made so much movement or traction that you will regret coming here. But we have been hearing new things, and you need to keep people who have got their ears on the ground working with you to make it easy for you. So I would suggest you have your selected people that help you with investments at all, despite the fact that you know exactly or you have invested there before.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I just want to support that point as well, especially for anyone who talks about the bad experiences in investing, not just specifically to Zimbabwe, but anywhere in particular. If you've invested long enough, you would have gone through a process of burns, so to speak. I think a lot of people that are actually investing, once you hear certain stories of things that have gone wrong, if you experienced enough, you can filter to, okay, this is part of the process, okay, this is just propaganda, okay, this is just a first timer who was hoping for £1 million in a day. So it's good that you've actually shared that information. Appreciate it. And the last one, if I can pass that to Lawrence, please. So this is the experienced investor who has gone through the ups and downs, but getting good returns, nothing to complain about. And what is it that I should be excited about? What advice would you give me to keep me investing?
Well, I think your fortunes are about to get better. Because coming back to the previous question about the bad experiences, part of it would have been at a micro level, which is where you are not working with experts. Part of it was at a macro level. And I have admitted that over the past 20 years, we've gotten some of our macro level policies badly. But now we've kick-started. And if we get it right this time around, it then means the economic environment will be supportive. And you already have a record of investing successfully. It's about to get better. All the infrastructure that works, that are taking place, it means your route to market becomes easier. If we get more electricity, if the world gets bigger and more hungry, all those are opportunities that are there, which is why I'm saying, if you're an experienced investor, I would encourage you to take a little bit more risk in ZIM, and I believe you will be well rewarded. And obviously, just like all the other investors, work with trusted counterparties. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So yes, please, a round of applause for everyone. So if you are an experienced investor and things are going well, take more of a risk, spend more of your money, and you will get better rewards as well on that. So if I could shift over to yourself, please, Chennai, in terms of the mortgages. You shared quite a lot of information earlier on, which was some really good stuff. A couple of things I wanted to ask on behalf of the questions that are being asked online. So your tenure, you've got the 5 years. It's interesting that Ken mentioned 5 years being a short term, but you mentioning 5 years as a term for your mortgage. Is there a reason why they're just 5 years, or is there potential sometime in the future to make them longer? Is there any plans for any changes on the tenure of your mortgages?
Thank you. Surely we didn't pay you. You bring in the hard question. No, simply like I was explaining earlier on, we've got a tenure, let me say an average tenure of 5 years.
Yeah.
This is basically being informed by the National Development Strategy that we have. Lawrence also earlier on spoke onto it to say it's allowing multi-currency into 2030. So we are aligning with that particular period.
Yeah.
However, I did highlight to say we have got other mortgage products wherein we can slightly exceed that 5 year, and it depends on the risk appetite from bank to bank or even from developer to developer to say, would you want to go beyond that prescribed period? But yes, we do have other mortgages that we're lending beyond that.
Brilliant. That's really good to hear. It's just to make sure that for anyone who's thinking 5 years is the maximum, there's no other way. There are options. Just make sure you bring your situation, bring the deal, so you can have it analyzed for you. So you can understand.
If I may add on, I'm just looking at the people in this room. Basically, you are investors. And ideally, for an investor, you would want to hold an obligation for a longer period. It would actually be beneficial for you to pay within the 5 years and you move on to a next opportunity. And remember, I know this is not popular with you, but we're talking real investment here. That shorter period, you turn around, you are able to go on to the next property. Remember, when you are here, you are actually getting rental yields that you can actually apply to the repayments. So over 5 years, it's very achievable. And I believe the MC earlier on said, you are actually getting loan facilities over 5 year periods. So it's an option, though we also have other products that can go beyond 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, if we can stay in the room, guys, let's stay in the room. Let's have one conversation, please. Thank you. And I understand where you're coming from. Not to necessarily disagree, but we tend to look at the longer the better, the little, as much as you pay, the better. We're looking at cash flow, especially if it's a rental unit. But ultimately, it's good to actually have different options, and I think it's good for you to share the information that you have on this one. The other thing in terms of the mortgages, I'm not sure if I missed it, but can I in the UK get a mortgage in Zimbabwe whilst I'm here? I think I know who asked the question. I just heard them say absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I think the colleague did answer from the crowd, absolutely. And this is why we're here. And if I can add to saying we actually have been playing in the diaspora market since 2009. Maybe we've just been below the line, and we are happy to say we have actually underwritten more than 2 million.
Wow.
UK only. So shout out to UK, and we continue underwriting.
Yes, round of applause for that, please.
So you can get knowledge.
That's really good. That's really good. And this goes back to the same thing that I was saying earlier on. This is information we don't get. Quite a lot of people don't actually realize you can get a mortgage from here, so they're under the impression that I have to work with someone who's local. So thank you for sharing that. So it's really good. Okay, if I can just skip over to Julian, please. Just a quick question over your presentation earlier on. I think it was fantastic, absolutely brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. So I think it's really important. It's easier for us, I think anyway, it's easier for us to understand here in the UK the importance of using greener energy, so to speak. It's a simple opportunity for Zimbabwe because of the weather. However, it's a slightly different mentality. Based on the conversations that we tend to have in the Zimbabwean community, I guess the green side of things is not necessarily something that is prioritized, so to speak. Yeah. Do you tend to have those kinds of conversations? Do you get that challenge? And if you do, how do you look to overcome that?
I think there's two ways of looking at it. We look at it from a point of view of trying to be better with the planet, with our resources. But even from a sort of developmental, if you're wanting to build several thousand homes, you're then thinking, well, we need grid electricity.
Yeah.
And then you go, we're repeating what the West or Europe has always done, and I don't think that's necessarily the right thing. And we see leapfrog technologies in other places, like mobile phones, for example.
Yeah.
You can go straight to smartphones. Why shouldn't you go straight to a smart home? And that would be the argument. It's like, it's not about compromise being sustainable, it's actually about getting the better benefits. And that's why I probably didn't emphasize it enough. It's about reinforcing quality, not compromising on quality, is the circular mindset. It's about using the materials you have for the best. And so it's not greenwashing where it's based on guilt and based on, well, I need to switch the lights off here. You're getting more electricity than you need. You can leave the lights on and not feel guilty, So it's about quality, and it's about, as Ken said on some of the stuff, he's talked about smart homes. There's so many more things that we could be doing with our homes that we're not realizing, because the technology's there, the ability is there. So it's not a conversation about being hemp-wearing vegans. It's more about living to the full. I like that. There's no way. But it's about living to the fullest with the planet. Yeah. We've got 10,000 times the energy hits us every day from the sun. The plants understand it. We don't. So for me, it's not a compromise. It's actually elevating, hopefully.
Love it. A round of applause for everyone. That is brilliant. Whilst we have the mic, I've got one more question just before I open to the audience to ask questions. So, you talked a lot about working with development companies essentially, and you're looking to build in mass, which is fantastic. but I'm listening in and I've got my little home. I think this is a great idea. How can I actually utilize your products to just improve my little home with what I have right now? Is there an opportunity for you to work with me, or do I need to go in and build a big house?
It's equally applicable for a small home, and because your small home has less energy requirements. So what we've done, and it's been driven through the reduction in cost of the photovoltaic cells. No one's realizing this has happened. It's almost $8 a square meter is the cost of the photo cells. Whereas if you want to put panels on your roof in the UK, you're talking thousands of pounds.
Yep.
It's not, it shouldn't be that, and that's where we want to realise that. So on a small home, you've got a large area still to collect. The physics adds up. You know, the sun even hitting a vertical wall is still 70% efficient. Yeah. And so a small holding can still generate enough electricity for that building. So it doesn't need to be a big building, but we've presented it as quality. It's not about compromise. It's not about that. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Is Natasha still around here? There's supposed to be a mic that's going around the crowd. I might have to do it if... Yes, thank you, please. If you could just grab one of the mics. So I'm just going to open up to you guys to ask questions. If we could make the questions very brief, please, because we're running out of time. So just quickly tell me who you are and ask your question, and we'll move from there. The gentleman with the England hat.
Thank you very much. My name is Pardon Tafumane. I'm a lawyer as well as a politician. Bad combination. Thank you so much for your presentation, very much on spot. Two things that I want to speak about. One, KYC, know your client. It's very important in terms of your presentation. CBZ, by now we should be having CBZ UK. There's no reason. We have got Bank of India, we have got Bank of China, and all the like. Zimbabwe, the only Zimbabwean companies that we have exported are funerals. Diaspora CBZ open accounts here so that we can have Zimbabwean banks in the UK and in the diaspora. It's very important. Not only that, it's important because, again, KYC, we have documented Zimbabweans and undocumented Zimbabweans. And those who are undocumented are a lot of those. We have many of those. So when it comes to the issues of accounts and so on, people are struggling having accounts. But if we are having an account from CBZ, people can also transact here and also transact in Zimbabwe. That makes it easy. And secondly, in terms of equity release, we have documented Zimbabweans who are here who want to buy Kent's 1 million properties. They've got properties here which they can release equity. What they have to do is they have to release the equity here first and take it to Zimbabwe. Why should we do that? If CBZ is there and you have got banks here, we can release the equity here and buy the properties that Ken is building in Zimbabwe. It's very important for us to do that. Third, KYC. Ken, I love your properties, but diaspora is not Harare. Diaspora for Zimbabwe, I'm born and bred in Bulawayo. I want to see those 1 million properties in Bulawayo. I want to see them in Bainbridge. I want to see them in Victoria Falls. So let us begin to have a very, I don't want to accuse you of marginalization because I'm a politician, but let us have those properties across Zimbabwe because it's investment. I know Harare will bring us good yields, but let's have them dotted across all countries. The Airbnb, we've got people coming from all over. We need those properties in Bulawayo, we need them in Escondini, we need them in Gwanda, we need them in Mutare, in Cholocho, we need them all over there. And lastly, KYC. You are all ambassadors coming from Zimbabwe. The issue, elephant in the room, we the diaspora, we want our vote. Please, know that. When you go back, we want to invest in Zimbabwe, but also our vote to vote in Zimbabwe and participate, we want it also. Thank you very much.
Wow. Just in case you guys hadn't noticed that he's a politician, I'll let everyone answer the question. If we could start with yourself, please, Lawrence. If you can answer the first 2 KYCs for him.
Well, thank you very much for believing in us. Until recently, I thought the South African market was too big for CBZ. But when we went there, we got a similar message. 3 weeks ago, we were in the UAE, well received by the sheikhs. They were also inviting us to go and establish in that part of the region. And so thanks very much for welcoming us and for promising to do all your banking business with us going forward. So we take the message. I don't think there's anything wrong with us having a small establishment. So if you look at British banks like Barclays, the reason they went to Zimbabwe was they were going to serve their entities and people from the UK. When they thought their mandate was over, they were quick to pack their bags. Hence I find myself at CBZ and no longer at Barclays.
Thank you. Yes, Ken?
So I'll answer the question, my brother, that related directly to me, which was the cities outside of Harare. So we feel that everyone has their place in the market. That's why we love today's event. It's a great initiative because it allows collaboration. We at Westprop don't have the Majelis mentality. We love to share. And I'll give you an example. In Dubai, we won an award, 4 awards actually, for the best properties from the most prestigious property awards, International Properties Awards, run by a UK company. And our colleagues from Bulawayo was there. They're here, they're in the exhibition hall. They have a huge development in Bulawayo, in the City of Kings. And that development will take them many decades to complete. It's more than 4,000 stands. We have a huge development in Harare. We're developing Harare West at the Hills Estate, which is a $300 million estate. We're developing Harare North, Borrowdale and Pomona, which is $4 billion of development. And we've just been given a new piece of land, Harare East, which is Enterprise City, 140 hectares. Those 3 areas will take us the next 2.5 to 3 decades to build. We can't afford to take more on our plate because the 1 billion bricks will not be 1 billion anymore. It might be 2 or 3 billion. But the land that we currently own requires 1 billion bricks to build out. So we would prefer to stay focused, to execute our mandate with what we have, to deliver, to keep our promises, rather than overpromise and underdeliver. And then the last message, I will take it to heart. We'll work on it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I can attest to it. I was talking to them yesterday, and there's a lot of developments happening in Bulawayo that I didn't actually know. So, Ziaboy. Any other questions? Right at the back. I don't mean to make you run. I'm sorry. Right at the back, the gentleman at the back. Thanks. If you could tell us your name and your question quickly, please.
Many thanks for having me. Kenny, I'm probably one of the guys who retweets your on X all the stuff you put on there. Here's the thing. I believe in Zimbabwe. I now just believe in Zimbabwe. My name is Michael Tegeza, right? I have £10,000. I want to invest it in Zimbabwe. Where can I put it, Kenny? Today. Make me believe that this is the right thing. Because the biggest thing that we've suffered in diaspora is the fear of the unknown. We're like lost children abroad, right? I survived the wars in the United Kingdom. I want to believe in Zimbabwe. Make me believe in Zimbabwe. I have 10,000. Where should I put it? Many thanks.
If we could borrow the mic. Thanks.
So that's an easy one because, as I mentioned to you, we're breaking ground on Block 5, Millennium Heights. And the £10,000 is exactly the number for a share in an apartment that will have a double-digit yield. So that money that you invest will be linked directly to the ownership of a free title property that you will own forever and earn a rental from. We will build that property, furnish it, manage it, and rent it out on your behalf.
Thank you very much, you brought me in.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that question. If we could come just here with the lovely lady with great hair and blue top.
Thank you. My name is Ifemi Amanyaka. My question is on infrastructure. It's all these buildings you're putting up, but what about the underground? Where are the water treatment works? Where are the wastewater treatment works? Where are the networks and everything else? I have recently been home and it's not looking very good. The houses are looking beautiful, but the underground is really bad. What are we doing in terms of investing?
So I'll start with it and give it to patience. We will talk specifically to our developments. We know that the macro environment is very bad. The city of Rory has failed dismally to provide simple drinking water to its residents. The city of Rory has failed dismally to provide adequate sewage infrastructure. So to address those two problems, for example, in Pomona City, we're building a 2 million litre water storage reservoir to provide the residents the 700 stands that are getting serviced currently. We're also moving away from relying on the macro infrastructure to having micro infrastructure to make it a smart city. So sewer will no longer be mainline sewer in Pomona City. It is 100% biodigesters, which means all the sewer never leaves the area. The grey water is reticulated. In fact, the lakes that we'll be building in phase 2, which is pure water lakes, will come from it. Hard to believe, but it exists all over the world. Zimbabwe's not yet done it. And I would love Julian to add to that question, because I think his technology and the things he was talking about with hydrogen are really exciting for us, because that's the kind of technology we need to bring in. And lastly, electricity. We're building our own IPP. Zimbabwe has allowed, the government has allowed a new legislation for independent power producers under 5 megawatts to not even have a license. So we can just start. We're starting with 500 kilowatts immediately, and we're going to build several of these power plants within our developments to sell electricity to the residents. So we'll be off the grid. As of next year, we'll be off the grid. We don't need ZESA, we don't need City of Rory water, and we don't need sewer. We provide our own to our residents.
Amazing. Yes, go for it. I want to reinforce that. The idea of centralized and macro doesn't work for the exact reason that you're giving, is when you try to expand too quickly, it creaks, it happens here. That's why London's building yet another sewer down the side of the Thames. And we need to think about these things differently, and I totally echo what Ken says. By solving these on a micro level, you can expand without having those problems.
Amazing.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it on to Lawrence, but I just want to make a comment. When we say when we are buying into investments, we need to do our own due diligence. Zimbabwe has an excellent town planning policies, and there are a lot of approvals. So many things that need to be approved before a person can be permitted to move in. But there were those properties that Lawrence were talking of, the properties that were built on illegal land, where the necessary paperwork or the necessary procedures were not taken. These are some of the properties that are giving us all these problems. So it's important that when we are investing back home, let's look at who we are dealing with, which developer we are dealing with, because these developments that create problems are done by the land barons. Yes, and when they do that, this is then the negative report that gets back to say there are challenges back home. Zimbabwe's bylaws are a carbon copy of the UK. So everything should just work unless we've cut corners or unless we've paid money to these land barons and we've built on land that has not been properly acquired. We will continue to have these problems. So please, let's do our KYC, let's do our due diligence before investing in property. I'm going to pass it on to Lauren.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm very happy with the new developments that are coming up that have got their own solutions. but 80% of our people need our help. So we want the city of Harare to be working well and functioning well. I'm happy that as CBZ, we have a partnership with City of Harare, and we are looking at the areas that you raised. So very quickly, in terms of water, what is happening at a central level? For Bulawayo, Gwai Shangani is expected to start filling this coming season. The pipeline is going to be run all the way from that dam, others are calling it a lake, to the city. And we believe that will sort out Bulawayo's water problems. What I like about Bulawayo is the council is organized. What they lack is raw water, rather than the capacity to treat. So I believe that once that pipeline is in there, then Bulawayo is sorted out. For Harare, what is promising is Kunzi Dam. I'm actually happy that one of our clients is building Kunzi Dam, which is to the east of Harare. And we believe that will be a cleaner source of water for areas like Epuwe, Mamvuku, the eastern part of Harare. We will still need to sort out the western side. But the beauty about Harare is we have 5 or so lakes, Chivero and others. So the raw water is there. And it's an investment opportunity for yourselves to say how best did we partner with Harare City so that we clean up the water which is there, we sort out the infrastructure. What we have done with the private sector, some companies in Southerton, they came to us and they said, you know what, we've been relying on bore water, but it's no longer working because our boilers are breaking down because of the quality of the water. Can we not have a dedicated line just for the private sector going to Southerton? The reason we are supporting that initiative is to say when the water gets to Southerton, it would have passed through Highfield. Yes. And perhaps some would drop off. So as we are coming up with these solutions, when I look at the bankability of that case, these are entities that pay the city of Harare $5 million a month. How do we fail to develop a solution when you have put that kind of captive customers? So my challenge to you is to say, put together the funding that we require, come back home with your engineering ideas, and let's work on it, because our people need help. Because without a centralized situation, they won't be able to make it to the next stage. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's some really valid points. Really good question there, by the way. So any other questions? Right, if you could go to that lady with the glasses on the head. Yes. Yes, please. She paid me more.
Okay, I'm going to answer on behalf of her. This question is directed to Ken. He spoke about the bond. So my question is, because obviously there are some exchange rules, so how do we repatriate our profits if we invest in that bond without the approval of the exchange control from RBZ?
I think that question is best answered by the banker, but I will say this, that any investment into Zimbabwe, so when we raise a bond outside of Zimbabwe, it's considered a foreign liability, a foreign investment. Any investment coming into Zimbabwe is registered, typically at the Reserve Bank. There are other ways to register it. And once that debt is registered as an external loan, it has an approval number, then the remittances against it is very easy, because you have the approval from the Reserve Bank to remit the dividend or the profit or the yield or the interest rate attached to that bond, as well as the capital of that bond. So I don't think the remittability is an issue from a regulator point of view. Also for us on the VFX, we're fortunate that we are the first stock exchange in Africa that is US dollars. All the counters on the VFX are US dollars, listed in US dollars, and will remain permanently in US dollars. So our business, the fundamental of our business, always has to be based on US dollars.
I think that question was answered very well. The bankers have confirmed. Well done, Ken. Thank you very much. So, unfortunately, we had to bring this to an end. really, really sorry. I know we would like to talk about this for hours and hours upon end. So what I just want to say, first of all, on behalf of all the people that have come here, all the people that are watching, thank you so much for the information that you've shared today. I think it's been really, really valuable and something that is really good for us to actually follow up on. If I could just ask each of you very quickly to tell us where we can find out more about you and your businesses, so we can follow up for any questions that anyone else might still have. If we could start, Julian, please, thanks.
Well, if you saw the QR code, that would have taken you to our website, but you can email me, julian@imaginationfactory.co.uk, or just Google the Imagination Factory and you'll see all of the stuff that we do there. And really looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Peace of mind.
Thanks, Julian.
Wasteprop.com, you'll find our latest website. You can look me up on all the social media channels. About 39,140 followers on Instagram. So I'm hoping I'll have 40,000 by the end of today. I'm open to communications. Please reach out to me.
Our UK affiliations at John Greenwood and Hamptons International. So you'll find us on those two portals as well. But our local website is www.cif.co.zw. For those that want to email me directly, it's